Did you hear the story on that? John Simmons is,
Yes, John Simmons that provided to you.
he's given it to all his staff.
Okay.
So what's it about? I don't know, but the author is a
Are we live?
mindset also. Do you know anything about mindset? The idea of,
That was what, 2 years ago?
I know.
No, I'm just being
So,
funny.
so this idea that a growth mindset is what we need to cultivate.
Okay, Mr. President, you're gone.
Okay. I'm going to call to order Lake Tahoe Unified School District Board of Education special meeting, September 28th, 2020 at 7 p.m. I would like us to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Bonnie, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Let us go to item 1.2, roll call. Shannon, please take roll.
Hi, please state for the record if you are present. President Larry Riley,
Present.
Trustee Turnbull,
Present.
Trustee Kemper,
Present.
Trustee Bannister,
Present.
and Trustee Matthews.
Present over Zoom call.
Thank you.
Okay. Let us move to item 2, please. I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Troy. It passes. Okay, let us move now to item 3. Item 3, we will discuss phases of learning delivery pursuant to the 2020-2021 pandemic educational plan. Dr. Cutler, this is yours.
Mr. President, members of the board, thank you very much. Appreciate that you were able to find this time to have a special board meeting to continue a conversation regarding our pandemic plan. I want to thank all of those that are in the audience this evening. I really want to take a moment to thank everybody for their input that they've provided to the board, myself, over the last several months. Really to start, we started the process in June with a task force that had over 60 participants that represented the entire school community that went over a span of 6 meetings, worked on putting together a plan. We brought that initial plan to the board for a conversation in July. We ended up having 3 meetings through that process. We made revisions accordingly. And there were several participants. Those meetings back in July, we had some that had over 170 participants in our Zoom. As we went through our first phase 1 of our plan, it's been 4 weeks. I want to thank our staff for all the work that they've done as we have begun this virtual distance learning phase 1. I believe they've really done in all odds, in many ways, providing teaching and learning in a way that we aren't prepared, we aren't used to. We didn't go to college for, in many ways, having to adapt and adjust. And as we've heard, it's for some very challenging with Canvas, but I'm proud of the perseverance of our staff pushing through that. Per our pandemic plan, it says that after the 4th week, we'd take a look to make a decision. Last Tuesday, we had a meeting which had over 150 participants. We had well over 20 community members speak on their feelings of it. Throughout the week since, I believe I've had over 100 emails providing me input. And I want to apologize to all of those that have sent me email. I'm pretty proud of always responding, but it was very difficult. So those that I didn't respond to, know I read them, and I thank you for that. Interesting enough, the feedback has really been across the board regarding the interests and desires of parents, staff, and community, from not wanting to be back to wanting to be back in full, having every student back in. and a lot of things in between. So again, for everybody that's here tonight that has been a participant throughout the process, thank you very much. I want to thank the board for your work. This is not easy. This is tough decision-making. As in essence, you can't please every person in their interest and their thoughts. We went through a very detailed process this summer that brought us to our pandemic plan that did have 4 phases. And our district, in my mind, has done as good a job as we possibly can to this point to work through many challenges, obstacles, and again, that goes to our staff that have it every day working to this. So now it's a decision per the plan of where do we go next. I also want to reiterate that in the whole process, we have presented to the board all of our safety plans. We've presented to the board all of the maintenance plans that have been in place. We've presented throughout the last few months all of the work that's gone into being prepared to whatever next step is in place. During last week's board meeting and beyond, and thinking about all the input, one of the challenges I felt were in place were, are we really truly ready to take our next step to be in a hybrid mode, phase 2, starting October 12th? If we think about the criteria was established, and it's just so for reiteration, when you passed the plan to a 5-0 vote for the pandemic plan on July 30th, we had over 380 cases per 100,000 in South Lake Tahoe. Our positivity rate for COVID was over 8%. Today, we're under 60 cases. That number is, I believe, is about 53, but you know, it's I know for sure we're under 60.
Oh, it's like 25.
We had over 8% positivity in July. We're under 2.5% positivity rate right now. The new state COVID color scheme, we're in orange. Orange actually says that we can go back to school, period. So all of the criteria or data that's in place, along with that we now have testing capability as is expected per our California Department of Public Health and other expectations, is all there. So the data says that we move to phase 2. Again, I share that I felt though throughout the process that we need to think about, are we ready to go to phase 2? What I want to reiterate is I believe we are ready for all the safety measures. We put a lot of effort and time into all of that. Cleaning, masks, all of the components that need to be set in place are there. But what became really relevant to me last week is that we have some levels of concern on how we will make this happen effectively. So tonight I'd like to make a recommendation to you of doing a little variation to our pandemic plan. And that variation is simply phasing in phase 2. Let me explain that. Phase 2, per our plan, is a hybrid plan, meaning we have half the students in school at a time. I believe that by phasing in, and I'll explain it, we can actually make sure we put our efforts focused on each of the different levels at a specific time to make sure that it goes off as highly as effective as possible. So the plan would be, in my recommendation, to begin, as is the plan states, after the 6th week, phase 2 for elementary schools, October 12th, we would start hybrid. We would start middle school November 2nd. I would ask that Mr. Simmons and staff, along with community input, spend additional time. They have been working diligently, so I don't want anybody to think they haven't. They've been working, but spend additional time on their hybrid model. Present to the board their hybrid model on October 13th. Make any final modifications to it, and we begin on November 2nd in the middle school level. And then also November 2nd with the high school putting a plan together for students to come in and do lab work. So a smaller version of the hybrid with just focused on those classes that really need to get the students in for labs. And they would begin that and present on November 2nd, also with a plan for that component on October 13th. And then start the remainder of the high school on hybrid model November 30th, and ask that the Sinkler and her staff with community input finalize and work on their hybrid model and to present to you, the board, on November 10th. One of the things I think is really important as we think about making this decision and thinking about all that's in front of us, I know there are lots of concerns, but I also know that getting students back with their teachers face to face and being able to build those relationships and have learning as normal as it can be in this model will be a big step in our process. It provides us the opportunity to have our safety measures in place, focus our attention on our younger students first, then moving to our middle school students, and then finally our high school students. If you think about our 4-phased plan, it asks for us to review every 4 weeks and the possible change every 6. Well, we could stay on that plan and consider move to phase 3 for elementary, because that's the only level that has any change in phase 3. And we can still consider that if the data demonstrates the possibility for it in the future. Again, I just say this: we've worked diligently with our Barton Health partners. We've worked diligently with our administration. We've provided an opportunity for everyone to provide input. Very difficult decision. Yet I think that the plan that the board approved on July 30th provides us a solid plan to move forward and not step too fast with this little variation. So with that said, Mr. President, I look for direction.
Thank you, Dr. Cutler. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lead off, and if you have any questions or comments, we'll go around the room and so forth and so on. But I'm going to sort of take the lead to begin with this time. Okay. My recommendation to the board as a trustee, not the president of the board, is to stay the course with the 2020 and 2021 pandemic educational plan, adding Dr. Cutler's recommendations to improve phase 2. I believe in the task force who put this plan together with the help of Barton. All of us know that no plan is ever perfect. What's good is that our superintendent recognized our phase 2 needed to be adjusted and has presented these needed adjustments to the board tonight. I have the faith, the trust, and the confidence in Dr. Cutler's leadership skills to lead the district. Once again, I recommend that the board needs to stay the course and help Dr. Cutler lead this community through this pandemic crisis. Bonnie, any questions, thoughts, or comments? We'll just go around the room, okay? And then we'll let Troy speak. Okay, go.
I would fully agree with you there, Larry. I feel like this has been a very lengthy, thoughtful, transparent process. We've had a tremendous amount of input. It's, of course, very challenging to, there is no satisfying everyone in this situation, but our commitment is to our children, and our community can really come together around serving our kids by offering this opportunity to be where we know education happens best in their classrooms, or especially in the case of elementary. I know that very good people are going to come down on all sides of this, and that's okay. The science guidelines that we have been following give us every indication that this is safe, and it is I feel it's our obligation as the board to get our kids back into school. I do appreciate the recommendation to stagger start. because all of us are fully committed to making sure every child is safe. And so by slowing down a little bit the process, we have the opportunity to really focus at every different level and make sure everything is perfect before we invite children back, of course. So I think that's really all I have to say. This is the direction that we need to go. We need to be taking care of our kids. That's our mission.
Trustee Kemper?
Thank you, Chairman President Larry Riley. I also support the proposed phasing in of phase 2 of our pandemic plan. I recognize as I agree with what Larry and Bonnie had to say, it's a difficult choice and we know we're not going to please everybody, but I really do appreciate the work everyone's put in to get to this point, and I really appreciate the time that was taken just over the last week to consider implementation of phase 2 and recognizing that maybe there needs to be some more time to sort that out. And I really think it's important the elementary school children get a chance to be in person with their teachers. And I hope that the community can trust that the district is doing everything possible to make sure our children are safe. And I recognize this comes as a surprise to many of us. I think the numbers in our community have rapidly improved, and it caught me by surprise. And I know a lot of people are feeling like it feels too soon, but I recognize that the numbers are telling us that it's a lot safer here now, and we're all doing a good job wearing masks. And I urge everyone to continue practicing social distancing and wearing your masks so that our children can be safe and our teachers can be safe and our community can be safe. So I support the proposal to phase in phase 2.
Thank you, Trustee Kemper. Trustee Bannister?
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
What did you say the date was for the high school lab process to start?
Yes, so Monday, November 2nd was the idea to start middle school back in the hybrid and to start identified classes, specific lab classes, November 2nd.
How is these special ed classes going to happen? Or is that also following the dates of like middle school, high school, and then elementary going in on the 12th?
In regards to special education, special services, we've had certain students, depending on their IEPs, already receiving on-site support, and so it'll just continue with whatever is necessary for meeting their IEPs. So to be more specific, I could ask Dr. Cohen to jump on, but if you think about it, if we're on a hybrid for the elementary students that are on an IEP, if they're on the A day, they're on an A day, and then depending on their needs would be their additional days if necessary.
Okay, and then one of my concerns was being able to support families in the hybrid with minimum days like at the elementary level. Is there going to be some kind of help with that, or?
So I guess what I believe you're asking is, for example, Boys and Girls Club has the service that they have available to families to fill those other gaps.
Is Kids Zone coming back?
At this point in time, because of the interest of safety, we're looking at not having Kids Zone in place.
Okay. And then I just wanted to get a little bit more clarity on the research of when we go to hybrid, it's less time with their teachers. Like right now with distant learning, 4 days a week, the kids are logging in through Zoom or Google Meets, or not Zoom, but Canvas. And then once we go to hybrid, I understand then they pretty much only see their teacher they physically are seeing their teacher less and then they go on to online. Are they still streaming with the teacher or?
So appreciate that. And I do have the elementary principals this evening ready to do a presentation in regards to to the hybrid model for elementary, which I think can answer some of those questions. So, Mr. President, I don't know if you want me to jump in right there on that or wait to finish the questions from Trustee Bannister on
Do
anything.
you have more questions?
Just one
Okay.
Why
more.
don't we let her finish her questions and then
Well, then see if
that's a good
Trustee
transition.
Matthews.
And then go to Troy.
And we go to
Trustee
Troy
Matthews.
and then the
Very good.
transition.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you, because I think that the elementary principals can provide some clarity on that.
Okay.
But the one thing I do want to say is the value of getting our students into school to see their teachers 2 days a week is just, it's extremely powerful. And that relationship that they can now build in person, the relationships, even though social distancing with masks, that they can build with their fellow students, that social emotional components that come with being in the school that we've been so concerned about, I think is so key in this process. And again, I don't want to steal any of the elementary principals' presentation, but if there may be a little bit of less synchronous time, and again, they'll clarify, but the power, but we are still full go on those other days in regards to a virtual learning environment. Okay.
And that concept carries over not just elementary, but to middle and high school.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yes.
And then I just want to understand if COVID resurfaces in a large way, is the protocol quick to flip back to distant learning? Like, is that, how are we connecting with families when that happens?
Yeah, so think again, and part of, I think, the wisdom of the plan was that we're number one, we weren't locked into a plan for several ongoing weeks. Meaning, we look at it at the fourth week to determine after the sixth week. So if after the fourth week, we looked at make that change. I understand we have protocols in place if there are COVID cases in our schools that could end up shutting down a school back into a virtual through that process. Of course, we will look at the data throughout the entire process, and if it looks as though we're on an upswing, we can easily shift, if necessary, back to phase one. And that's how the phase approach is on that fourth week, we determine, oh, you know what? The cases are up, we're back past, again, for phase one is that over 100 cases per 100,000, the positivity rate up at that 8% or greater and level. Those are those levels that we go, you know what? We have to go back to phase one. I was listening to a group of doctors speak about this piece right here, actually this morning, and it was on a video, and the doctors were saying that if cases are low and transmission is low in a community, then schools should be in session. If transmission is high and cases are high, then the school needs to have to consider being back in. And it really reinforced that that's what plan we put together.
I guess I lied. I have a couple questions. I am concerned of the social emotional piece with, a lot of kids and staff are struggling. Do we have like a solid, or a decent foundation to be able to support emotionally our students and even the staff, teachers included? With especially going back, I'm kind of a little concerned of like bullying coming back in, we've got, strong depression, a lot of the emotional stuff, the frustration level of online, even as beneficial as it has been in our time period. It is quite an emotional strain on students. So I'm just wondering, with this next phase happening, how are we able to support our students?
Well, I mean, there's multiple threads of support that we have in place in our district, and that being from individual support to group support, Um, and, and so it's very difficult to do that actually through the distance and virtual components. It's very hard. And we have a professional development we're planning for our staff to help and support them to support kids virtually. But when we get kids in and they're with us and we get to see them and we get to see their emotions and their feelings, we are so much more apt and ready to be able to address that because we're with them. And in regards to, whether it be bullying or other misbehaviors, those are always elements that we have to address in our school, have zero tolerance to it, and work to address it at all times. Again, if you'd like a little bit deeper answer, because Dr. Cohen works diligently on this specific element regularly. So I can ask Dr. Cohen if you'd like to have some additional comments on that.
I just feel strongly about that piece because this has been pretty hard on, it's affected everybody. And then just my last piece is, I can't even hardly wrap my mind around the workload that is now going to happen with our teachers. The shifting into hybrid, then bouncing back and forth between in-house and online is there training happening? Is there good support? I mean, I've talked to a lot of teachers and I know they're all leaning on each other and sharing ideas, and it's really brought a lot of people together. But I just, for the benefit of the students, would like to understand that piece a little bit.
So I think this is one important statement in regards to the day being a little bit shorter. There's several reasons why there's a 4-hour day. One of them is to limit, because we can't have as much movement of students. So we want to get them in, get them fed, get them, the teaching and learning time with their teacher, and then back out of the school. So there is a component to the shorter time frame for our students in that mode. But also it's part of supporting our staff and knowing that they have a lot of prep that needs to be completed, and also work with students that are at home when they're not in the virtual setting. So our MOU spells out some of that important time that is protected for our staff to have professional development, collaboration, and preparation time. And so I understand your concern because this has been hard on our teachers. And as we've heard from some really struggle through the implementation of Canvas, needing additional help and support, and staff helping each other. It's funny, I've just got an email just this evening from a teacher saying, thank you for bringing Canvas, and that encouraging that we don't lose sight of the use of it even past the virtual, which I think is very important because it is a place that keeps the teaching and learning organized. It keeps students able to know what they have to complete. There's much more to that than that. So, but that's part of that scheduling process. And even when the elementary principals provide you a presentation this evening, I think that they'll be addressing that briefly.
Okay, I appreciate all that. I'm greatly impressed with the staff and our teachers. They're just going over and above, and I really do respect that. I've been so moved by how they've been staying on top of it, even during their tough times. And I really value how scary the pandemic is, and those that, are worried of going back and being around kids, and we're approaching winter and everyone gets runny noses, and, the gravity of wanting to be in class and not. So I appreciate that, and the staff and the teachers a lot.
Dr. Cohen just sent me, he said she would love to provide any additional information. And she wrote, we have agencies ready to support as well. Is Dr. Cohen on?
I am. I'm on now.
Dr. Cohen, do you want to provide some additional thoughts? Thank you.
Trustee Bannister, I just wanted to address a couple of comments that you made regarding our students with disabilities receiving special education services. We actually have been providing in-person services for almost a month now, and it's been going very, very well. A testament to just our staff, their diligence, the ability for us to put in place health and safety protocols, all of those things. So I just want to let you know that's successful. We are looking to expand that, and we continuously do so, identify students who need additional in-person services. Some of our students with disabilities are able to navigate the virtual learning platform without challenges, which is great, a testament to all of our teachers. But if we are identifying students who need in-person services, we are doing everything we can to ensure that we're able to provide transportation, and that's working through the logistics with Christy in the transportation department to get students on campus. But as far as supporting students socially and emotionally, especially at middle and high school, we are also working to get students who need counseling, support, individualized therapy, and we meet monthly with our community agency partners in order to try and continuously develop those services. They are ready to go to provide on-site services if we can get students there. So for students in of our most needs socially and emotionally, we are really ready and have available a lot of services to meet their needs. So we will continue to navigate and work with our community agency partners, as well as our counselors, our school psychologists, to get those services in place. And do you have
Thank
any
you, Dr.
questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I'm good.
Okay. Thank you, Trustee Bannister. Trustee Matthews. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, thank you. I'm reading this as a discussion item. Are we preparing to vote on this tonight?
No, what we will do, just give your comments and everything else, and then I'll explain when you're done. Okay, that fair?
Okay. Well, this is the first time I'm hearing this plan, so I would appreciate more time for study before we have any kind of vote on this. It seems to be, I have some problems with the hybrid plan, and this seems to be just stretching it out further. So I'm not really sure if I can get behind this without further study. So I would love some. I think you said the principals are going to do a little presentation, Dr. Cutler. Is that correct?
Yes. So the recommendation is a little bit about making sure that we took the time needed to be effective and efficient with our hybrid model, to make sure that we focus our efforts on each different level. Our elementary school students being the ones that we felt we needed to get back sooner than later. So the elementary principals will be providing a presentation here momentarily regarding the elementary hybrid plan. And then the idea is for the plan is for the middle school to present their hybrid plan to the board on October 13th, so that we could launch it effectively on November 2nd. And then the high school to present their plan to the board November 10th, so that we could launch it effectively November 30th, just to recap that.
Okay, then I will hold off any other further comment before I see the details of the plan.
He said he'd hold off on further comment until he sees that plan.
Okay,
I believe that's what Trustee
That's
Matthews
what I
said.
heard too.
okay, okay.
That's correct.
Okay, then Dr. Color, why don't you, you're going to have some of the principals available.
Yes, so
Do a
I believe
presentation.
that our principals are ready to present, so I'm going to have them come on. I believe, Christina, you're going to share your screen, is that correct?
Yes, I'm getting it ready now.
Okay, you and Joel are on.
All right. Good evening, the school board trustees and Dr. Cutler. I'm Christina Grubbs, and I'm the principal at Tahoe Valley School. And tonight, Joel Damerol will also be co-presenting with me, and he's the principal of Lake Tahoe Magnet School. We're going to be sharing our elementary hybrid plan overview. Oh, wait a minute here. Okay, now, at all times, safety is our number one concern, and it's our overarching guiding principle. So to give you a couple of ideas of what we're looking at, number one is about masking. Anytime anyone comes onto campus, they must wear a mask at all times. This is for all students and staff. We also will be maintaining social distancing, making sure that students and staff maintain that 6 feet distance between each other. In regards to cleaning and disinfecting, we're going to make sure, and we have been, that all classrooms are sanitized nightly. And then the public areas on the campus are going to be sanitized throughout the day. And again, at all times, we follow all of the CDC guidelines. Hold on.
All 4 elementary schools are totally aligned in our phase 2 hybrid implementation plans. This will create equity for all elementary students within our district. Although our daily schedules will be different, our phase 2 hybrid framework is completely aligned.
Now, one of the main differences between phase 1, the distance learning, which we're in right now, and then moving into phase 2, the hybrid, is that all students are now going to get that invaluable face-to-face time with their teacher and their peers. So when you are in your cohort, they're going to be coming on campus for 2 days. Then for the other 3 days, they will continue with their digital learning off of campus.
So a student day overview, students will be in cohorts of no more than 12 students in grades K through 3 and no more than 17 students in grades 4 and 5. Cohort A will be on campus Monday and Tuesday and digital Wednesday through Friday. Cohort B will be on campus Thursday and Friday and digital Monday through Wednesday. On-campus students will attend school for 4 hours. Breakfast and lunch will be provided for all students for the week.
Now, we wanted to kind of share some of a sample of what's going to occur at the elementary school sites. So we have an on-campus cohort. Those students are going to be on campus for 4 hours for their 2 days. All of their academic lessons during those days will occur in person, and they're going to cover all of the core curricular areas. We also know that meals, thinking about meals and how kids will get their food, it will actually be delivered to the classrooms, and then the students will be consuming it and eating it while they're on campus. Now, we also know that recess breaks are a necessity. So we've built in a morning recess so that kids can have that movement and get those brain breaks for long-term learning recall. Now, again, when I talked about safety protocols, one of the pieces we also will be putting into place is that we're going to be utilizing multiple ingress and egress openings to really try and limit that cohort mixing. And most importantly, they're going to really get that social emotional support. and it's going to be for, because they're going to be with their teachers and their peers. And that is absolutely priceless.
And for the distance learning cohort, these are students that will be off campus working synchronously and asynchronously. The synchronous instruction for distance learning students led by the teachers during the school day could include direct support for lesson completion, social emotional check-ins, small group and/or individual support for differentiation, and tech support. Asynchronous independent learning will continue for all grades.
Now, people were asking about those, about the meals and the food and the recess schedules. So we want to let you know that all students are going to be eligible to get that free breakfast and lunch every single day, thanks to us receiving the federal school lunch waiver. So when students are on campus with their on-campus cohorts, those meals, breakfast and lunch, are going to be delivered to the classroom, and the students are going to be enjoying them while they're on campus. When they are off campus, those meals are going to be sent home ahead of time. So let me give you an example. If I'm in cohort A and I come to school on Mondays and Tuesdays, I will have my breakfast and my lunches on campus with my classroom. Before I leave school on Tuesday, I will also be given my breakfast and lunches for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So I have access to all of my food before I get home, and also so it's available while they're at home easily. And again, we know how vital those recesses are. Students need movement. We need to give them those brain breaks. That is what puts that long-term learning into place. And so we want to make sure we will have a recess daily.
One of the biggest challenges for us is maneuvering through the school. So following the CDC guidelines and safety measures, external doors will be used whenever possible. Bathrooms will be designated to specific classes and cleaned throughout the day. Signage will be posted for traffic flow in our hallways and throughout the school. And 6-foot distance markers will be placed in areas of high congregation, like in front of the office or where students are expected to line up outdoors. On the playground equipment will be off limits at this time. Playground maps are being created to designate areas for separation of classes and cohorts. And we are sourcing games and activities that involve no contact and no equipment. Are there any questions?
What is there an option between wearing masks versus shields for students?
Both of them are okay, because again, it's more about that safety protocol. Depending upon the comfort level of the student, they can have either a mask or a face shield. And again, students can use their own, or one will be provided for them.
And then in terms of the food, is there still a connection with bread and broth with the backpack program and helping kids through weekends and whatnot?
Absolutely. On Fridays, the bread and broth folks will be following the school buses around in the afternoon to distribute those food bags.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Troy, anything else?
No, not at this time.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for that presentation. It really, I think it was a very, very rich and complete picture of what we're looking forward to.
And I do want to say that I really thank the elementary principals for the diligent work that they've put in. They've been working on all schools have been working on their plans. Yet it was very clear that we needed to step back a little bit and make sure that we put extra time as we go through this. And that was one of the reasons why we said, let's start with elementary. Again, identifying our elementary students and the need to get them back in school sooner than later. Also hearing how successful our virtual system's going at the secondary level helped with that idea of that we can work on our hybrid plans to be more successful, to be really well enriched, well thought out and rich as we get ready for them per the plan. I want to reiterate that depending on what the board wants to do this evening, when you passed the 4-phase plan on July 30th, the intent was to just follow that plan. In essence, you made it my job to just implement that plan. And if that was the case, then we would simply make the decision. And today was the day we said we would make the decision. That's why we're here on a special meeting this evening, to just move forward with the phase 2. I did not feel comfortable making that decision because I felt as though we needed a varied phased in approach for phase 2. And that's what I wanted to make sure that I was able to bring to you this evening to either gain consensus from the board and direction or actually take action, which is, so I leave that to you, Mr. President.
Well, thank you. I had a discussion last week with a board member who gave me a concept that when we finish certain subjects, it would help the situation if we took a quick vote of having a consensus. And so I'm going to do that. Okay. I was asked to do it. I thought about it. I told the board member I would think about it. Fly fishing. I figured we'll do this.
Mr. President, just
Yes.
a clarification. So when you talk about a vote, you would need an action.
No, I don't want to vote.
So you're just taking a consensus.
We're just going to take a consensus.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
This is what I wanted.
Straw poll.
Okay.
I apologize. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's not a straw. We're just going to say yes or no. So consequently, do we have a consensus to continue the 2020-2021 pandemic educational plan, adding Dr. Cutler's recommendations to improve and phase in different elements of phase 2? Trustee Turnbull, yes or no?
Yes.
Trustee
Yes.
Kemper?
Yes.
Trustee Bannister?
I'm pretty comfortable with the phase. I do have another question.
What, can we do this first and then you can ask your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
I answered you.
Did you
So
say-
I believe it was yes then.
Okay, I didn't hear the yes.
Okay,
That's
okay.
why I was trying to get clarification. Trustee Matthews?
At this point, no, I haven't seen enough information about this. This is the first time I'm seeing this plan. I have problems with the hybrid plan, and I don't feel comfortable being put in this position. I feel like you're asking for us to take a vote tonight, and we're just now hearing this plan, and so no, I'm not comfortable with this right now.
Okay, and I would vote yes. So that would be a consensus of 4-1. Okay, so let us,
Mr.
go ahead,
Mr. President, I
clarification?
think Trustee Turnbull wanted to say something.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say that in my view, we're still following our plan. I don't think that we ever specified that it had to be done either lockstep or, that it had to even follow a specific order. Quite honestly, if we got to level 4 and suddenly we had increasing numbers, we would jump back to 2. So I feel like we are still on the plan that we had approved.
Mr. President, Trustee Bannister acknowledged she had another question.
She had another question. Yes, thank you.
On the elementary level, with the 3 days of distant learning, is the classroom, because it is all the same students, so on those 3 days, are they literally doing what we're doing right now, or is their class being recorded live so that they're involved, they're just checking in from home? How does that work?
Yeah, and so I'm going to let our principals make a couple comments, but that effort to have synchronous while we're with students will be a process of working with our teachers to get to that point. I think that's the question. But on a daily basis, outside of the 4 hours of instruction, teachers will be engaging with the students on a daily basis so those are 3 additional days. I believe that's the question that you're asked. And I would ask and see if
So,
Christina or Joel have.
Trustee
Joel?
Bannister, we do have a group of teachers that are ready to pilot a simultaneous program. where they would be running the classroom with their kids that are there, the hybrid kids, as well as the kids that are at home. But I think that's going to be a process that we need to see if it works. Therefore, we're going to pilot it. If it does work, then we could go out to the whole district with it.
I think that's one of the important things to add. You know, as we started the first day of school and we launched Canvas, we knew that there would be a learning curve for everybody. Certain teachers would be a little bit more ahead just because of their technological skill and savvy, but there was no critical or criticism of those that struggled. And I think that as we move into the hybrid and we experience having our students in school and some out of, we'll grow and build on that as well.
One of the other key pieces that Trustee Bannister had also asked too, just to give a little clarification, when we're looking per SB 98, right now, if I was a 4th or a 5th grade student, the minimum number of hours that I have synchronous or face-to-face with my teacher is 5 hours for the week. Once we move to hybrid, the minimum synchronous time or face-to-face you'll have with your teacher as a 4th or 5th grade student is about 9 hours for the week. So that just for the one piece gives you a little bit of an idea of the difference.
And with the hybrid model, with all the elementary kids being together, being that recess is going to look different, I just am not quite picturing how, you know, like I struggle to be still. So how does that look in a classroom when we are trying to social distance? And, you know, I mean, we do have some kids that have different types of chairs or maybe a standing desk, but how does that work overall?
Well, overall, Trustee Bannister, we do have half the number of kids in the class, and the teachers do have the option to take those kids outside at any time that they'd like. You know, if they need a brain break, if they need to get out and move a little bit, they can do that. They're not, you know, we do have a recess schedule that we're going to follow to keep the social distancing piece, because we can't let, once again, the whole school or half the school out at the same time. So we do have to have a schedule there, but teachers, you know, and that just having the face-to-face with the kids are going to be excited to be here. They're going to be excited to see their teachers. The teachers are excited to see the kids. I think all around it's a win-win.
So when they're in-house, how are they able to handle this teacher-student social distancing? Like, say they're working on long division or something to that effect. And in the past, in traditional, you know, the teacher's leaning over their shoulder, guiding them, pointing, whatever. Like, how effective is it now with the distance and not being like on the screen, able to point things out?
Well, they will be able to show them using a lot of different manners. The one key piece we need to remember, we have the most phenomenal teachers here in LTUSD. These teachers learn, try, they share their ideas. They work really hard to make sure they are meeting those students' needs. So there's a lot of ways. I mean, we could go on and name hundreds and hundreds of ways that they can individualize, but just know, and you have to trust our teachers and their professionalism to do anything they can to meet those needs.
Okay, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Dr. Cohen, did you want to add something?
Sorry about that. I just wanted to add that, you know, the in-person learning opportunities that we have been providing for our students with disabilities has given us an opportunity to see small cohorts of students come together and really practice and enforce the social distancing requirements that are mandated. And what I have observed and what teachers are reporting to me, quite frankly, our students are doing an amazing job. They are wearing their masks. They are keeping 6 feet distance. they are able to follow all of the guidelines and rules that we have established and put in place for hours at a time. So I think that giving our students and our teachers the benefit of the doubt, allowing them to move forward, is going to show that we are actually very successful in implementing everything that we need in order to maintain the safety and health protocols necessary in order to provide a safe and healthy environment for our students when we bring them back. So I just wanted to highlight that, because our teachers have done an incredible job, and for 3 weeks they've been teaching these protocols, and it has been exceptionally successful. So
Thank you, Dr. Fong. You know, thank you, Mr. Damerol, Mr. Grubbs. Thank you for sharing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let us then move from item 3. Let's move to item.
Can I say something, please?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, Troy, sure.
Okay, so in my interpretation of the plan that we approved, we were prepared to move from phase to phase, skip back to phase 1 if needed, skip a phase if needed. I am just not comfortable modifying the phases as we've approved them. I'm not comfortable with the hybrid plan. I feel like in all of the comment that we've received from the public, the choice has come down to really maintaining distance learning or proceeding with some version of phase 3. And those were the choices that I'm prepared to discuss. I don't know that I'm prepared to discuss extending this hybrid plan as it currently exists. I appreciate the work that's gone into this. I appreciate the principals and the teachers for putting so much thought into this. But I'm not prepared to support the hybrid plan as it's currently written at this point. So I just wanted to let you know that that's where I come down on this.
Well, thank you. Okay, anything else? Okay, then let us move to item 4, communications from the public. Public comment in a special meeting is limited to those items described in the agenda. All public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Dr. Cutler.
Yes, Mr. President, we have several comments this evening. We're going to start this evening with public comments that were submitted in writing. And so Ms. Chandler will read those for us.
Hi, good evening. I will start, I'm going in alphabetical order. I'll start with our first public comment from parent Jenny Albanese. And she writes, "Dear school board members, I like to write down my concerns about moving too fast to a hybrid school model. How do we know that the teachers in the middle school are prepared to guarantee the safety of our children and the teacher? The middle school has around 600 students. Each student has to attend certain classes following their individual school schedule. After each class, they need to change to a different class through the hallways in a timely manner to attend their next class. How do we guarantee the hallways are not too crowded and the 6 feet social distancing will be followed? It will create stress and fear for everyone. The school class size are, according to my latest information, 17 students and 1 teacher. Do we have enough classrooms who can hold 17 students and 1 teacher for each student, allowing a 6 feet circumference? This was requested from the CDC guidelines. I do not think we are there yet. So far, I did not see a thought through plan which helps with all aspects. A fact is the COVID-19 virus is transmitted through the air, and it is hard to prevent in enclosed rooms with large group the spread of the virus. Cleaning the surfaces is important but secondary. The air needs to be constantly filtered. A heating system can contribute as well. I cannot imagine a learning environment without fear for teachers and students. Even more, will the hybrid learning be more sufficient than the online learning classes? It will be harder to understand a teacher talking with a mask and limited facial vision. In addition, the flu season will approach, and the only reason we do not have high number of COVID cases in Tahoe is because schools are all online. Other states who opened their schools already showed increase in COVID-19 cases. We do have the luxury of doing the online teaching, and every student has a Chromebook. We need to be aware about this fortunate situation compared to other countries who do not have electronical supplies for every student. I hope as a community we can help each other if parents need their students to be watched by other parents. Thank you everyone for being aware of the reality of this pandemic. Ignorance towards scientific facts will not help us, but rather harm our students, teachers, and families. Kind regards. The next comment is from Susie Allione, teacher. As a longtime social studies teacher at STHS, I would like to make a plea for remaining in phase 1. I believe that a move to phase 2 would be disruptive and not at all conducive to effective learning and teaching. I have surveyed my students, and many have expressed that they have developed routines and schedules that work for them. The thought of returning to a classroom with face masks, shields, barriers, restricted movement, etc. is not an improvement over learning face-to-face in a Google Meet classroom. We all want to return to the classroom and be together and resume our teaching strategies that engage and elicit meaningful learning, but phase 2 will provide none of that for teachers or students. Please consider this message from STHS Principal Carlene Sinkler to the staff from this past Friday following a week of virtual classroom visitations. Quote, "These visits have become the highlight of our days. We have seen or participated in games, deep discussions, claim evidence reasoning, excellent use of a video as a springboard to discussion and visual engagement, breakout rooms in Google Meet, a taste of jazz, virtual field trips, in-depth discussions led by students, amazingly positive openings of class where students are greeted and drawn out to participate fully, excellent persistence," in parentheses. Many student presentations of their work, in parentheses, writings, art, thoughts, research, end quote. Above all, the board and superintendent should consider safety first. Staying home and socially distance is the only logical choice. Please do not play Russian roulette with our health. Make the safe choice. Okay, and the next message is from Melissa Benavides, teacher. My name is Melissa Benavides, and I am a teacher for LTUSD. I strongly feel we should go back to in-person instruction as soon as possible. I ask you this question. Are some teachers, staff, and admins' lives less important than that of STEA unit members? Some teachers, staff, and admin are allowed to provide in-person instruction to students. If it's about safety, then why allow some students on campus and not all students? What makes their lives less important? The current MOU does not express many teachers' feelings towards returning to in-person instruction. Many of us would gladly go back with safety precautions in place. Many other districts have had cases, but those cases did not spread to other students or teachers. And our current numbers speak for themselves. Face coverings work and decrease the spread of COVID-19. With necessary safety precautions, I feel all students should receive in-person instruction. We cannot continue to live in fear when we are currently allowed by the state to provide in-person instruction, and according to the plan created by the district, we should be back to hybrid October 12th at the least. Please consider sending our students back to school. This comment from parent Jessica Brambilla. My name is Jessica Brambilla, and I am the mother of 2 LTUSD students. When the board adopted the phased reopening plan, I was on board, even though we were allowed to open up schools at that time. Our city was in a bad position when it came to dealing with the outbreak of COVID-19. Our city should have been closed, but the rest of the county was doing great. Mixed with our creative way, we counted cases, allowing our overall cases to stay below the threshold set by the governor. Now our county and city are doing great. We were able to move down to the orange tier, and we were actually bordering on the yellow tier. It is my belief that it is now time to open up schools. We currently are in a position to do that, and you have had all summer and these last 4 weeks to prepare and watch what other areas are doing to stay COVID safe and open. Our district should have been watching the successful Boys and Girls Club, Whittle, and Zephyr Cove Elementary. These are all schools in our immediate area. As the owner of 2 small businesses in South Lake Tahoe that were closed due to the pandemic, I was on top of what my next move would be. I watched other businesses similar to mine and made a plan for what would have been required and what I should do to open up safely. When the call came that we could open, I was prepared and able to open on day one. I hope the board is prepared just as we all were. In our community, we have a lot of families made up of just a single parent or two working parents. The school staying closed is putting a hardship on a lot of us. I had to pay the Boys and Girls Club $760 for my kids to attend a program that is missing the mark when it comes to helping the kids with distance learning education. My daughter comes home every night with most, if not all, of her schoolwork undone. This also poses a hardship having to pay this as one of my businesses was closed for 10 weeks and my other was closed for 14 weeks and has also been closed again. We cannot wait any longer and are unsure why our teachers are not considered essential in the classroom, as most all of our businesses in South Lake Tahoe are now open. I do not consider distance learning to be a real form of education, as it seems to be just supplying busy work. Another problem that I see is that parents that feel unsafe have many outlets, but the parents that want to return to school only have the option of Boys and Girls Club, and that program is full. We cannot live in fear of the unknown any longer. I don't think any of us thought we would be doing this good in such a short amount of time. I would like to also inform the board that the parents who want school open will be holding a long protest to have our needs heard and met. We will not be standing outside of an empty building holding signs hoping that you hear our plea for help. We will be protesting by not having our children attend distance learning. They will not be at the meetings and they will not be submitting any work, as then the school will not be able to count on our children's attendance money, as most of us do not believe that this is real attendance. I hope that you can see the time to open schools is now, and we are not talking about just elementary. We need all schools open. The phased reopening plan that was adopted is since outdated and unrealistic. Please make the best decision for our children's future. Okay. Next comment is from Susan Braun. Hello, I am a home daycare provider and have been in the child care field for 25 years. Both of my children attended LTUSD and went off to college and are now back in Tahoe living. I wanted to express my concern with the hybrid model. Sharing schools and attending the school district and then a preschool, Boys and Girls Club, and/or a home daycare scares me. There will be more germs spread and more children mixing pods than is necessary. I believe kids should return to school full-time and that this is the only safe option. Every other business in town has figured out how to operate under new guidelines. Doctors, daycares, dentists, and service industries. The teachers can figure this out as well. It's scary and new and will need some adjustments, but it can be done. Either stay with distance learning or go back full-time. Thank you. Okay, and this comment is from teacher Kelly Brooks. Dear County Public Health officials, school district and school site administrators and music educators, the purposes of this letter are to 1, share the most recent information regarding teaching music as safely as possible during the COVID-19 crisis, and 2, to request that decisions regarding music education classes align with the California Department of Education Arts Education Guidance published on September 3rd. On August 27th, the California Department of Public Health released a guidance document recommending that no band or choir courses be permitted to play or sing at school sites. This CDPH document does not take into consideration the International Coalition Performing Arts Aerosol Study or the CDE Arts Education Guidance document. School districts are making decisions regarding music programs based on the CDPH document, which is misinformed and out of date. This is an equity issue. Students have the right to access music programs similar to other content areas such as physical education and athletics. Please align your decisions regarding music programs with the most up-to-date and equitable resource available, the CDE guidance. The CDE Arts Education Guidance of September 3rd, 2020 was published by the CDE in collaboration with the California Music Educator Association. The document provides guidance and resources to support local educational agencies in determining how to safely provide arts education in alignment with California Education Code Section 51210 and 51220. The CMEA Capital Section Board, in collaboration with the CMEA State Board and the CDE, hopes that you will implement these safe practices if and when your schools return to on-site learning. In order to assist The process, a link to user-friendly summary of the CDE guidance is provided below and includes recommended local dealers for instrument bell covers. We hope that with these guidelines, a safe and equitable return to the music classroom can be achieved. And that's from Kelly Brooks. Okay, next comment is from teacher Kathy Dennis. My name is Kathy Dennis, and I am a veteran teacher of 22 years and a parent of a high school senior. First, I would like to say that I appreciate the opportunity for further discussion that this special board meeting provides. However, I am writing to voice my concern about what appears to be a rush to move to phase 2. My strong opinion is that moving forward doesn't necessitate a change in phases. Moving forward can be a push to develop a more workable, educationally sound plan with logistics that will ensure the safety of our staff and students. A study of the phase 2 hybrid proposal for high school shows that there would be a significant reduction in live teaching for all classes. Each cohort would move from 5 one-hour lessons per week in distance learning to only 1 lesson per week with a teacher in hybrid. As a teacher and as a parent, this makes no sense to me. If the high school classes aren't live streamed, what is available for those students who have to stay home with something as minor as a runny nose? Our FAQ sheet tells us that any slight symptom requires 10 days at home or a negative COVID test. What is available for those kids during those 10 days at home? They would have 0 live time with their teachers and would only have lessons that are posted in Canvas. The middle school schedule appears to have the same issue with the proposed hybrid model. Some think that a phased return should start with elementary. However, if you compare our proposed hybrid model's available teacher minutes with live teaching minutes during distance learning, it shows that as the grades increase, the gap between the possible live minutes during distance learning and the instructional minutes in a hybrid model widens. Students will actually receive less live teaching minutes during their in-person time than they would have received during distance learning spread out over the week. I have submitted alternate plans to Dr. Cutler and the board, and I am sure that others have as well. Let's take the time to look at these and other options before moving forward. Of course, there are safety concerns to consider as well. We are putting a lot of faith in families to ensure that they are doing a morning health check with each one of their children. Many of our families do not own thermometers, so ensuring that their child has a temperature below 100.4 is rather difficult. Additionally, we will need a robust substitute list, which we did not even have last year. Teachers get runny noses and sore throats as well, and I'm sure they have to follow the same protocol. We will need substitute custodians, which we did not have last year either. We had many days with substitute teaching positions failing to fill, as well as custodian substitute positions failing to fill, so we did without. How does that look this year? There really is not enough time and space in a 3-minute comment to list all of the health concerns that many teachers have regarding coming back too soon. For the benefit of the students, the staff, and parents, please do not rush to move phases. These concerns need to be addressed and we need a new plan. Thank you for your consideration. Okay, next comment is from Roseanne De Pieri, teacher. I am a teacher at Bijou and I wanted to express a different perspective than what I have heard from teachers who have already spoken up. Many of us teachers and other school staff whom I have spoken to do think we should move to phase 2. The current community spread has dropped significantly and our community is now in the moderate category for state monitoring. Many teachers have argued that hybrid actually reduces the teacher contact time for students. However, we cannot compare a Zoom lesson to in-person instruction. The quality of both instruction and student engagement in Zoom lessons is far less effective than in-person lessons. While teachers are working incredibly hard to produce the best instruction we can, distance learning is simply not reaching all students equitably. Over the last few weeks, I have had contact with working parents who are expressing many challenges, such as older students needing to parent and support younger students instead of being able to focus on their own work, children working at home alone, parents not knowing how to support their children, lack of access to quality internet, parents' ability to support their children in a different language, and being newcomers to our country. In order for us to truly equitably support our families, we need to start bringing students to campus to take into account students' individual needs and as a team have the ability and resources to support them. I think we can all agree that safety is our number one priority, and there are concerns about moving to phase 2 that still need to be addressed, but let's work as a team to problem solve in the next 2 weeks. Okay. The next comment is from Lincoln Else and Galena Seeger. LTUSD school board members. Like many families, caring for our children during COVID has been challenging but feasible, in part due to the support of our elderly parents as part-time caregivers. If LTUSD begins in-person instruction, any help from our parents will entirely stop, as they will no longer spend time with our children due to the heightened risk of COVID for the elderly. Starting in-person instruction while the virus continues to be a serious threat will have a significant detrimental effect on our ability to care for our children while continuing to work. While we want our children to benefit from in-person instruction eventually, 2 half-day socially distanced classes per week don't fit for our family and does not justify the hardship that will be created by losing the only part-time childcare assistance available to us, on top of the added risk for ourselves and our children. Please take this reality into account. We strongly hope you will commit to continuing remote learning despite its challenges. If you do decide to start in-person instruction, we implore you to continue providing video conference-based remote instruction for families with circumstances like our own. Thank you for your hard work in navigating this unprecedented educational challenge. This comment is from Greg Gangitano. My son has it pretty good here at home and still prefers to go back. Please open up the schools. Okay, and next comment is from Julie Heitzman. Please open our schools. My kids are depressed and they're being robbed of their education. Please, please, please let these kids go back to school. And this comment is from Mari Jimenez. Hello, I am sure at this point you have received many emails. I would like to keep it short and to the point. As parents, my husband and I want the best safety for our children and others. I work for Barton Health and my job does not allow me to work from home. I would really like it if we stuck to online school until the children can go back full time. Online works best with my work schedule as my husband's. I have a TK student and I would not have after school care since I am unaware if Kids Zone will be open. COVID has really put a burden on my husband and I with finances, and we just can't keep asking for time off or special accommodations for our kids' school schedule. In total, we have 4 amazing kids and do not want to confuse and or complicate them even more with having them start a whole new system. Thank you. And this is from Greg Kuntz, teacher. As we began this school, Dr. Cutler and trustees of the Board of Education, as we began this school year in distance learning, I chose to go to my classroom to conduct my lessons. I wanted that sense of normalcy back in my work days, much like most of the parents and students do. I get it. As it turned out, in the middle of week 2, I was exposed while inside my classroom to a coworker who was exhibiting multiple symptoms of the virus. We had been in the room together for almost 2 weeks, masked and distanced, yes, but sharing the same general space. Watching the fight for breath from somebody who had seemed perfectly healthy just the day before was certainly alarming. My coworker was sent home by the school nurse with instructions to get tested and cleared before a return to campus would be permitted. That brought a new perspective on the idea of a safe return to school. My own children had medical appointments scheduled that afternoon. Not knowing the condition of my coworker, was it safe to ride with my kids in a vehicle if my coworker actually had the virus? I decided the prudent thing to do was to get tested myself, so I went online and scheduled a test that afternoon at LTCC. Now, I suppose there are varied opinions on how invasive the procedure of having an extra long Q-tip jammed up each nostril and spun around for 15 seconds might feel, but to me it was awful. More awful still were the following 2 weeks where every morning I woke with clogged nasal passages from the ongoing bleeding resulting from the swabbing. Fortunately, my boys had recently acquired their driver's licenses, so I was able to follow behind them in my own vehicle to those appointments that afternoon, rather than risk being around them in the tight quarters of a single car. It took 3 days, faster than average, to get my negative test result, but those 3 days were spent physically distanced and as much as possible under the same roof from my own children. My prevailing thought was that I didn't want them to have to go through that awful test because of me. I finally returned to my classroom last Friday for the first time since my test. More than any real desire to go back to my room, I went because of the upcoming need to transition from Zoom to either Google Meet or the infamous big blue button in the next few days and try to figure out how to merge Canvas grades into Aries. Progress reports are also due tomorrow night. This is hard stuff, without question the hardest to start a school year in my 32 years of teaching. I do not like distance learning, but I know the district's decision to start the year this way has minimized the number of cases from the students, parents, and grandparents who have had to experience the relative nightmare I've been through. And I want to finish with the reminder that I tested negative. Science tells us that not everybody will be so lucky. No one can make the argument that we will be safer during this ongoing pandemic inside classrooms than we are under the current distance learning plan. Thank you for listening. Okay, the next comment is from Gina Locicero, teacher. Dear members of the board and superintendent, thank you for listening to my comment this afternoon. I am a teacher at Bijou Community School, and I want to express my desire to move to phase 2 hybrid instruction. Despite my constant outreach to families, I am concerned that I am not able to adequately support all my students through distance learning. Many of my students are working below grade level, and I end up spending a great deal of time troubleshooting tech issues with them instead of being able to provide the interventions that they need and deserve. A lesson on Zoom does not meet the needs of all my students. I feel that I need to advocate for the families that I work with and share my feelings about the need for in-person instruction. I definitely believe that the district needs to prioritize safety and hear the concerns of all staff, but together we can plan to address all safety concerns. We owe it to our students to work hard these next 2 weeks to address all safety protocols in order to make it safe for students to come to campus on October 12th. Okay, next comment is from Crystal Long. I'm writing today to let the district know our family is wanting to return to the classrooms and in-person learning. With kids in 3 different grades, kinder, 4th, and 7th, distance learning is really a struggle. Each kiddo needs so much support, and I'm finding they aren't really learning anything, just doing bare minimum to turn it in and move on. Keeping my kinder engaged is a nightmare, and we rarely complete the day's tasks. I have tears with my 4th grader a few times a week, and my 7th grader says he absolutely hates school when he used to love it. The distance learning is hindering their love for school, their confidence, and stunting their learning. Even with me home helping, this isn't working. When making decisions tonight, please consider the low COVID numbers in our town, the mental health of our kids and parents, and that face-to-face instruction will better serve all of us. Okay, next comment is from Marissa Lopez Maddock. Dear Dr. Cutler, Trustee President Riley, Trustee Turnbull, Trustee Matthews, Trustee Bannister, and Trustee Kemper, I'd like to start off by thanking you all for the time you are putting into planning our next phase as we reopen our schools. As an elementary school teacher, I have great concerns about this next phase. My concerns about hybrid come down to 2 main points. The first is while phase 2 may be planned on an administrative basis, I do not feel that we as a team comprised of teachers and admin have thoughtfully planned this out together. The second concern highlights designated planning days teachers will need so that productivity is high and quality is not sacrificed. Regarding moving into phase 2, have we considered the time it takes to thoughtfully make groupings of students? Time is needed to reach out to parents and plan who fits into Group A and Group B to best support our families' already busy and complicated schedules. Have we entertained the idea of holding off on rushing into hybrid phase 2 and planning our busing situation better? We could do an AM/PM model and lease buses so that our kids could have daily interaction with their peers and teachers, not less in-person time than they did during distance learning. I know there are creative ways to make this happen. We just need to be thoughtful and execute with a plan. My final concern is planning days for teachers. If you can step into the day and the life of our current teaching situation, you will find that most of us are working weekends and extended hours to plan for our students. I personally spend 3.5 to 4 hours on a Sunday filming my weekly lessons and finding fun and meaningful activities to put together for my students. I do this so that during the week I actually have time to grade work, give feedback, run office hours, helping students in smaller groups, and communicate with parents while running 6 to 7 synchronous meetings a day. This is not sustainable. If the expectation is high productivity and thoughtful output of lessons, when in the hybrid model are we given the time to plan for in-person teaching while continuing with Canvas? These are two different models, not just one. Teachers greatly need Wednesdays solely dedicated to planning. We cannot stand disconnected from one another, as this is a team effort to best support our students, families, and teachers. In supporting your teachers, the ones who benefit the most are our students. Please understand that more planning time to move to phase 2 is imperative in providing our students with the highest quality education we can. Okay, this next comment is from Corey Malies. Please keep our kids, teachers, and community safe. Continue distance learning. I am a parent of an 8th grader. With the busiest, most crowded tourist summer ever, please keep in phase 1 distance learning. Also, keep teachers safe and reduce their workload. It's not right that they have to do all of this new computer work and then risk their health this winter, going back and forth to school, to home and distance learning. It's just asking a lot. Mainly distance learning phase 1 is going along smoothly. I do not want our child to contract or bring home COVID because with winter coming soon, community spread is likely. Thank you for considering that distance learning is going fine. Let's just keep contamination risk low. And this next comment is from Debbie. I just want to voice my opinion on this matter before it is too late. Parents want their children back in school. Children need to be back in school. The mental health of these children is more important than a virus that has survival rate of 99. Why can we not split these children into 2 groups? Children and teachers that want to go back, and children and teachers that want to distance learn. I do not understand why this is so hard. If we can go back to sports and sign a waiver, why can we do this with school? Why can we go to restaurants and be okay, but not school? Parents are fed up and you need to listen to them. I do not want hybrid with less face-to-face instruction. Our children are suffering. Let's start thinking about them. If the teachers are afraid, keep them home. There are plenty, I'm sure, to fill their positions. Read the articles and the science. There is no reason they should not be there. This is not going away. There will always be cases. The so-called vaccine will not cure it. So what are we waiting for? Seriously, what are we waiting for? Do what's right for our children. And this my next comment is from Marshall Municki. A comment to the board. I want to say we support what the teachers are comfortable with. My daughter and our family are doing well with online classes and would prefer to continue this way for another 6 weeks. But I know it can be difficult for some students and families, so I want to support them as well. Again, I really support the teachers' judgment because they are the ones that will be having the most contact. Thank you. Next comment from Samantha Portillo. I have mixed feelings about returning. I want my child back in school with their friends, peers as soon as possible. That being said, I do not think a hybrid schedule is the way to go. It disrupts the week, breaking it up in a way that does not keep them in a routine. The younger the child, the more routine matters. Right now, my child is doing very well online. I believe he would do even better in class full-time with his teacher. If we can't go back full-time right now, I do not believe we should go back yet at all. Please take that into consideration. I have more reasons, but I wanted someone to take the time to read this fully. Thank you. This is public comment from James Sider. Specific to 15.01 of the MOU under training, Do we have a specific plan to implement this extensive training with teachers and staff before our transition to hybrid? If so, when and how will it be carried out? Next comment is from Krista Sarah. I am extremely concerned about the potential impact on teachers if LTUSD decides to go to a hybrid schedule, especially so soon. The expectation that teachers will successfully operate a physical classroom and distance learning classes, in addition to performing supervisory and other duties necessary to protecting health and maintaining social distancing, is unrealistic. Overburdening teachers so students can attend in-person school twice a week is not a practical proposal and will likely lead to further teacher burnout, not improved student-teacher relationships. Thank you for considering these concerns. Next comment is from Jennifer True. I want to know why the teachers are only teaching 4.5 hours instead of the usual 6. When will the teachers return to their usual 6 hours of teaching? And finally, when will Wednesdays at the middle school be a more productive teaching and learning experience? Thank you. Next comment from Genevieve Villamayer. Hi, esteemed LTUSD board. I understand the desire to follow protocol in stepping through the phases in sequence. However, I feel hybrid will be extremely disruptive. It is my understanding that families which are comfortable with their children in small group settings at all don't care if it is 2 days or 5. People who are concerned have already opted for independent learning. Both my children are at the Boys and Girls Club, where I understand they, along with most of the others in attendance, have quickly embraced all the guidelines implemented for their safety and the safety of the staff and other children. My children never ask why they need to wash their hands several times a day and even do it independently without being asked when they arrive home. Same thing goes for the mask. They merely add it to their outfit each morning just before departure for school. Arrival at club is same, hat off, hair out of way, ready for Jude to take their temperatures. Children are resilient and smart. We need to trust and teachers and kids who go to do so in best interest of collective health. Let a short trial run get all other children up to speed and habit of protocol, and then back we go. Thanks for your concern and dedication. And this is from Carla Virueta. Dear Superintendent and members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to have my voice heard during tonight's special board meeting. Just like many other teachers in the district, I do not feel the district prepared us enough to start the year remotely with Canvas. Given how unprepared we were to begin the school year, I do not feel confident in the district's ability to prepare us for a smooth transition to phase 2 in 2 weeks. I look forward to the day my students and I can be together in our classroom, but I have many concerns and worries regarding phase 2. I worry about being able to socially distance 11 students in my classroom using only 5 tables that are 5 feet long. I worry about how to teach my students everything they need to learn when I will only see them 2 days a week. I worry about how my students will adjust to going to school 2 days a week and being home for 5 days in a row. I worry about how to teach and comfort students while staying 6 feet away. I worry about what will happen when one of my students or I test positive for COVID. And most importantly, I worry about bringing COVID home to my family. Distance learning has not been perfect, but my students and I are making it work. Right now, my students receive 90 minutes of direct instruction every day. A switch to hybrid would mean my students would only receive direct instruction twice a week and independent work for 3 days a week. Independent work 3 days a week will never meet the academic needs of my students, no matter how many hours I spend pre-recording videos and making digital activities. My students need direct instruction 5 days a week to continue their learning. I urge you to consider waiting to transition to in-person teaching until we are 100% prepared and everyone's concerns have been addressed. I also urge you to consider skipping phase 2 altogether, as it does not meet the needs of our students, or reevaluate the phase 2 cohort schedule. I thank you for your time and eagerly await your decision. This comment is from Laura Waters. I'd like to share my opinion on getting our kids back in school. I am in support of moving into phase 2 and even skipping into phase 3. I am a substitute teacher with an autoimmune disease. I've recently battled plague and know the fear of contacting COVID. We can step into the fear with knowledge and proper safety protocols. It is obviously a daunting task, but I have faith in our district to handle this with the utmost care. It's just not right that kids can go to work but not school. We have to move forward. Things may not go perfect, but life requires resilience. I've listened to parents and teachers' thoughts, and their concerns are real. My heart goes out to anyone who voiced opposition to moving into the next phase, but there are choices available for those that are uncomfortable. It would be remiss to not mention the incredible teachers whose jobs have drastically changed. They deserve hazard pay. Thank you. This is from Jeremy Wright. Hello, as the parent of 2 children enrolled in LTUSD, I'd like to voice my opinion that the schools should be open without any mask requirements. Thank you. And our last written public comment is from Agnieszka Zaluska. Good afternoon, board members and community. First, I would like to start by sharing the newest CDC update regarding survival rate with connection to COVID-19. On September 23rd, CDC released data showing that survival rate in group 0 to 70 is over 99%. Group 0 to 19 survival rate is 99.997%. I hope this good news will help some of the concerned teachers who expressed opinions about their fear associated with reopening of schools. I also would like to remind them that some of us essential workers didn't have the luxury of working remotely since March, 6 months and counting. I'm sure our local Rayleigh's employees didn't have that option to make your sandwich via Zoom. My husband did not have the option to deal with criminals via the internet while working for El Dorado County Sheriff's Department. I'm confident that Barton nurses did not have that choice either. Secondly, please consider reopening of schools ASAP, especially for younger kids. Our kids are suffering, not learning much, and dealing with technical difficulties daily. Distance learning when it comes to kindergarten is a joke. Just imagine 21 5-year-olds during a 45-minute Zoom meeting. It just doesn't work, and we need to admit it finally. If you need further guidance on how to successfully reopen schools, look no further than to our neighbors in Douglas County and learn from them. The kids on Nevada side have been back to school full-time for a month now, while the COVID cases remained low. I would like to finish by providing another set of data coming from our county's health department. During the week of September 21 to 25, COVID cases in Tahoe region were as follows. Monday 2, Tuesday 0, Wednesday 0, Thursday 0, Friday 2. Again, let's look at science, reopen the schools, get the kids up to date with their progress, and forget about the whole fiasco known more as distance learning. That concludes our written public comments.
Next, we will see 2 public comment videos. The first one is from Jackie Tan.
Good evening. My name is Victoria Toombs, and I have been a community member and kindergarten teacher with
Good evening to the
LTUSD
school
for 8
board.
years now.
I'm Jackie Tan, teacher at South Tahoe Middle School. I want to give you an update of what has happened since I spoke with you last week. Our staff meeting at the middle school this week was focused solely on upcoming MAP testing. We have received no further details or training pertaining to a shift to in-person learning. Lesson planning and the shift to Canvas continues to eat up most of my weekend. After being online for 4.5 hours on school days, I can't rely on enough mental focus during the week to develop and create lessons. I don't know how many other teachers have the same experience, but I'm fairly sure that I'm not alone. On a positive note, teachers around me are constantly supporting each other. And in my classes, attendance levels are close to typical in-person attendance. My students are actively engaged with new learning, and we just finished our first unit on 3D design and 3D printing. Both work completion and the quality of work are high. My students are demonstrating resilience, grit, as well as high levels of creativity. I continue to be concerned about a shift to phase 2 hybrid learning, and the questions I raised tonight pertain to the small world of our own classrooms. Number 1, what do you consider sufficient training for staff? Number 2, when will this training take place? 3, do we have a model of what our classrooms should look like? 4, What should special classrooms like science labs and the Maker Lab look like? How about protocols for shared equipment? Has anyone determined if 17 students can fit in a classroom portable building? Dr. Sneeringer recommended last week that adults maintain a 6-foot or better, a 10-foot distance indoors. Is this possible for each teacher in every classroom? Do we need to request clear barriers when these distances cannot be maintained? And when will staff members be afforded the time to set up their rooms for safe in-person instruction? Please remember that this is not a regular classroom setup. I don't want to overshadow all the positive things that are happening. However, we are 1 week closer to a potential start of face-to-face learning, and I don't think we are any more prepared. For our health and safety, we can't afford to do a rolling start as we figure out how to conduct school face-to-face. We need more time and a concrete plan so we can open with confidence on day one. Thank you for your time.
The next video we have is from Victoria Tomes.
First, like to thank the board and the district's administrators for all their hard work throughout these first few weeks of school. I know that many people are unhappy with how things have gone, but I cannot imagine being in charge during a time like this, and I understand that you've had to make tough choices. I have pre-existing health conditions that make me more susceptible to getting COVID. I had childhood asthma, I have scarring on my lungs from having pneumonia and pleurisy as a child, and I get bronchitis at least once a year during cold and flu season. My husband has an autoimmune disease, and he is on immunosuppressants, which further compromise his immune system. I am truly terrified of getting sick and taking the virus home to him. Though this may be a personal circumstance, how many of our teachers and students have pre-existing conditions and compromised immune systems? How many of our teachers are over the age of 60? In the summer, we received a survey asking whether or not we were comfortable returning to work. I remember the last question asked if we planned on returning this school year, as if it was an option. I am having to choose between my own life, my husband's life, and our livelihood. Many people in the past board meetings have brought up the fact that this is very much a moral issue. How many of you are okay with possibly taking the life of a student or a staff member? I don't believe there are any teachers or parents that would argue with the fact that students need to be in school. If you decide that it is time to return to school with the hybrid model, I will of course support your decision and try my very best to make it a smooth transition for my students. However, these are my biggest concerns and questions. Number one, TK to second grade students are not being required to wear masks. Though there is the belief that children are less susceptible, I believe this to only be because schools have been closed. Also, TK to second grade students still have adult teachers that are susceptible. Will we be receiving plexiglass desk shields that other districts have been using? Number two, screening and taking temperatures will happen at home. I do not trust that all parents will ensure that this is done accurately and consistently. Even during normal school years, we get 6 students at school that were sent despite not feeling well. What will the consequences be for parents that knowingly and deliberately put other students and staff at risk? Number three, I am concerned with the decreased amount of instruction time that the students would get. We all know that students learn best when they are in school consistently. When the students get back from their 5 days off, we will possibly have to reteach concepts. This will only take more time away from instruction. Number four, monitoring student health and hygiene. I am not sure how many of you understand what it is like to be in an elementary school classroom. Students are constantly picking their noses, wiping boogers on their desks, sneezing and coughing without covering their mouths, and going to the bathroom without washing their hands. Reminding them to wash their hands, to cough into their elbows, to put their masks back on, to not touch their friends, to not touch me, is going to be a full-time job in and of itself. And of course, will only take more time away from instruction. Thank you for your time and consideration.
And this concludes public comments videos.
Okay, Dr. Cutler, now we have what, speakers next?
Yes, Mr. President, we'll start with.
Are you going to time?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and then, okay,
Okay, so we'll start with Jody Dayberry.
3 minutes. To all speakers, you have 3 minutes, and then we will move on to the next speaker.
Good evening, Dr. Cutler, Board of Trustees, staff, and community members. I'm Jody Dayberry, the president of South Tahoe Educators Association. And I want to say thank you to everybody who has shared their opinions, their concerns, their questions, and their desires for getting our students back into school. However, the association does still have some concerns. Last week, when I spoke to at the school board meeting, I asked several questions and brought up concerns regarding the safety surrounding reopening our schools under phase 2 hybrid model. I want to point out that the district would be violating several sections of our MOU between STEA and L2SD. On page 5, Article 3.22, cohort sizes for 6th through 12th grade students are laid out. I want to share something directly from the California Department of Public Health. This is as of September 4th and reference to cohort sizes. Schools that have been authorized to reopen for in-person need to follow the industry guidances and any applicable order or directive of the local public health office. First question is, what are cohorts? In the K-12 school setting, cohorts are stable groups of students with no more than 16 individuals who are meeting under the direction of the LEA while the school is closed to in-person instruction and in addition to distance learning. How should stable cohorts be established? As outlined in cohorting guidance, stable cohorts are groups of students with the same supervising adults that stay together throughout the day. The cohort must operate so that students and supervising adults within the group only have physical proximity with members in their cohort during the day. The supervising adults and students must not interact with other cohorts. What's the maximum size for cohorts? Cohorts are limited to no more than 14 students with no more than 2 supervising adults in a supervised environment, or in configuration of no more than 16 individuals total, children, youth, or adults in the cohort. Can different cohorts of students interact with each other? No.
Is that 3 minutes?
15
seconds. Okay. You have 15 seconds.
So I just want to point out that we need to look at our cohorts and in any hybrid situation, we need to make sure that maximum space and distance is observed. In addition, STA has not heard of the process.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you, Jody.
Okay.
Dr. Cutler, who's next?
All right, Eric Beavers.
Yeah, thank you. I hope you can hear me. I don't have my camera. It's at school, so I apologize. Okay.
We can hear you, Eric.
Thank you. I apologize. I don't have a camera. It's at school for my lessons. I had some words, but it was revealed what Dr. Cutler's possible or some thoughts about a new plan. So I just jotted down a couple of notes. I think if we're thinking about moving that direction, we ought to keep a couple of principles in mind, the principle of democracy and the principle of humility. So just a couple of thoughts. If we're really thinking about phasing in the phase 2 and kindergarten or the elementary first, so on, I think we've really got to figure out a way to let teachers participate in this and not just deciding how we're going to do it, but deciding if we're going to do it or if it's possible. I think we've got a lot of people mentioned, we got a lot of smart, trained people who live and die for their kids, and they'll figure it out. But there's been so many times over the last couple of weeks where teachers have shared things and we're all saying, really? I didn't know that. Really? I didn't know that. So there's got to be a way for us to get together and share our wisdom to come up with something that will actually work. So that's a sense of democracy. And then I think we have to really practice humility. You know, there's 24 states and territories where the numbers are going up currently. The numbers were averaging about 30,000 new cases a day. Now, on Friday, it was 50,000, and the numbers are going up in many parts, and that could actually, obviously, happen here. We just don't know enough. In fact, there are many unknown unknowns, and I think it's a real good opportunity to teach our kids humility and teach our kids that, you know what, you can't always have what you want. And maybe there's a time we have to listen to nature, and we're only human beings. And I think there's this real opportunity to teach our kids some things other than, you know, where do you put the semicolon? And the last thing I want to say is, a lot of people remember back, we had a fire in 2007, and no, obviously nobody will wish the Angora fire or something like to come back, but gosh, that was a time when this community really rallied together, and we helped each other, and we came together, and we find ways to help the people who had lost their homes. And I think we can do that. I think we can help everybody stay safe and organize ourselves in such a way to help those people that need that extra help. And I'd sure like to see our community try to make that happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, Jennifer Dickinson.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for hearing us tonight. And I'd like to thank everyone that's been contributing tonight to the discussion that we're having. Dr. Cutler and members of the board, as a 30-plus year veteran of teaching, it's imperative that I express my grave misgivings about the plan to go to hybrid instruction on the 12th of October. The students will not benefit from spending less face-to-face time with their teachers. My daily synchronous instruction during distance learning is nearly 2 hours daily on a regular basis, which equates to 10 hours per week. The students' asynchronous instruction is spaced out throughout the day, and now that we have a routine, they attend their synchronous instruction with great punctuality and regularity. There is a high level of participation from nearly everyone. Also, if students need help with tests or other projects such as written assignments, they come to my 50-minute office hours in the afternoon. If we go to hybrid learning, the students will need at least another week or more to get grounded again, which means that we'll lose more weeks of active instruction. Additionally, students will have 3 full days each week of asynchronous learning, which is way too much time to expect children to stay engaged when they are not checking in with their teachers on a regular basis. Students stand to lose synchronous instructional time as well, since they will only have about 8 hours a week of direct instruction. Roughly 4 hours daily will not equate to the intensity with which students engage during the distant learning every day. These truths don't even begin to cover how much instructional time students will stand to lose in the very likely event that positive cases of the virus occur, and they will. Furthermore, on a personal level, I do not feel safe returning to school at this time. I am 60 years old, and though I am healthy now, I do not need myocarditis, lung problems, or especially more stress. The district has not taken enough precautions with staff and student safety. What will be done about those teachers and students who will not wear masks at school? The plan to allow students to eat in class, obviously with their masks down, heightens the risk exponentially to everyone, especially teachers who will be required to spend additional hours in the classroom before it is sanitized. This is completely unjust to students and teachers. Students don't need to be exposed to the risk of multi-system inflammatory syndrome either. Finally, I have a newly paraplegic brother who will need my help in the near future, as well as an 89-year-old father whom I'd like to visit in the coming months. Since I don't trust the protocols of our district, city, or county that have in place, and since I want to keep the momentum going with my students, I am respectfully requesting that we postpone hybrid learning phase 2, possibly until after Christmas. Thank you for hearing my concerns. With respect, Jennifer Dixon.
Thank you, Jennifer. Dr. Keller?
All right, Matt Kaufman.
All right, good evening. My comments are going to be relatively short tonight, as they no longer seem to be relevant since hearing about a proposed alternate hybrid plan. Some of the biggest concerns that I had was going to highlight this evening was exhausting our subpool and not having enough coverage for teachers who may have to quarantine due to student positive case exposure. I was curious how we were going to accommodate students on campus if some of their teachers are at home in quarantine, and was concerned with the unnecessary disruption in their schedules. I also thought it was a bit strange to use shoulder season in Tahoe when tourism is at its lowest to gauge whether or not it's safe to reopen group gatherings during a global pandemic. I appreciate the opportunity to share some concerns tonight, and more importantly, your willingness to hear from parents and teachers regarding safety issues during this challenging time. Thanks.
All right, next up, Alice Jones.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the bravery of the school board tonight and also the two elementary school principals that presented, Mr. Demmel and Ms. Grubbs. It takes a lot of bravery to step into the unknown and to be a leader, and I appreciate what you guys have put forth. I think they are good plans. I wanted to make a couple of comments. I didn't know what the plan was of the board or the district before tonight, so you know, we're all adjusting our comments based on what we've heard tonight. One comment I had before I heard what the plan was for tonight, and this is still my comment, and I've heard it from other teachers also speaking tonight, is why would we have the kids eating breakfast in class? Because I have a middle school student and I have a high school student, and I am 100% in favor of them going back to school. In fact, I'm a little disappointed that they're on a later schedule than the elementary, but I understand the phased approach. I understand why you're doing that. But I don't see the need to eat breakfast inside the classroom with the teachers. The teachers are already very concerned, as are some parents, to send their kids back. And I think that you've found great ways to distribute food for lunches. You're going to distribute via bags and meals throughout the week so that the kids can take those lunches home and eat them at home. And I feel like we can do the same thing for the breakfast, because, you know, when we're all going into this big unknown, the last thing we want to do is send our kids to first period and have those first period teachers and those kids in the first period class rip off their masks immediately. And, you know, we're saying the masks are super important. Dr. Fauci says the masks are super important. So these masks are protecting the classroom and the teachers. And so I don't see the need to rip them off and eat breakfast. I think that we can figure that out as parents in a community, how to feed the children at home. So that's the first one. And then the second one is with the middle school, I feel like the middle school schedule is not working right now. So if we are waiting now until, you know, another a little over a month to consider sending the middle school kids back, I think we need to consider the middle school schedule and what is not working. Wednesdays particularly are not working. I have a middle school student. I know other kids, they just sleep in and play video games on Wednesdays because they have no instruction. And so we need to look at Wednesdays, and also the every other week. That's not working either. I would prefer an A day, B day, so that the middle school students, like in a core subject like math, are not getting an entire week off.
15 seconds.
Okay, and then
Alice,
finally,
you have
you
15
know,
seconds.
with the high school and the middle school, I really appreciate, I want them to go back to school. I want them to go back to school safely. Please support the teachers though. They need to have like some support so that they can do
Alice?
the synchronous with the cameras.
Alice, thank you. Dr. Cutler?
All right, next up is Richard Kinnett.
Hello, everyone, this evening. Thank you for listening. I'm going to be quick here. I'm just going to reiterate some of our comments that have already been justified and spoken of. It is disconcerting to hear how this meeting did begin, because when we're listening, it's hard to claim we're listening when decisions have already been made by comments that are already being stated. As a scientist, it's easy to find inference through body language and context without actually having to read the words being said. So I feel like a lot of this is going to be a waste of time and falling on deaf ears. So first off, I would just like to say thank you so much for all your planning. I do appreciate that. It's always been my belief that there's an unconditional positive find in anything. It's not that I don't believe that you haven't completely planned. I believe that you are still planning, and a plan is something that's actually been completed and done and actually thrown out to be tested. Currently, I feel like we're throwing our plans out in a utopian society versus putting them in reality and finding out where they actually fail. So to start with cohort realities, I think our MOU stresses it's a 17 to 1 per class, or sorry, cohort size. Unfortunately, I think the district is starting to interpret that as actually going to be each class. So in a 3-class schedule, that means my 17 to 1 students that are not staying in the same class for 3 times that day is now to 51 to 1. That's assuming the busing is done all correctly. We have a lot of beautiful pandemic plan. You're referencing how you're going to try and assign seats in the planning. You're referencing how it's going to happen, but you don't have the specifics laid out for us. It's still being expressed as words and hows, but there's no specificity to the plan. I love the words. I love the recess. The presentations were great, but how are you going to hold the 6 feet to 1 or the 6 feet between students at these recesses? These are specifics in the daily actions that we should have already problem solved out. Other things that we're going to have to hit, because I'm going to be in my 3 minutes here, is again, our schedules are still being planned. Almost any paperwork you're going to look at is going to say draft still on that document. And that's because it's planning. It's not a plan. There's a difference. I really love our QA testing that our district has started to influence start. I love that you're trying to get a baseline study. It does disconcert me that you're trying to run the baseline study after the transition occurs. We have a chance of actually identifying which the problems, what schools could have the outbreak ahead of us actually transitioning into the school with the assistance of the LTCC testing at 2 days return. That's pretty fast data return. We just have to push these studies to go farther and actually complete safety protocols. Again, I don't think we have a standard process for what is a current practice. When custodians are out, they currently are not filled, cleaning does not happen. Does that mean the school gets
15 seconds.
Does deep cleaning not occur? Parent education, our current past practice is we believe they all learn it, but we know they don't. So where is the actual process for how you're teaching the parents how to run these practices? None of this is in there. You're missing the hows. I love the words. I would really love the specifics on how. Remember, these are life decisions.
Thank you, Richard. All right, next up is Ruth Ritz.
Hi there. I love that I get to follow Mr. Knet because he said a lot of the things that I want to say. I'm grateful to the people who have been putting in energies to try to improve whatever phase 2 looks like, but 100% agree that we're nowhere near thorough in rolling this out. The FAQ document provides us surface level responses to questions that need to be thoroughly vetted. And I am really disheartened by the amount of time that I, as a parent, am putting into doing research to find out answers to those questions myself, to find out what questions need to be asked of you guys to get the answers. For example, I have a friend in New York City who is a doctor who has taken on over the whole pandemic all of the circulation of air issues in hospitals. And he has educated me to the nth degree, and it didn't take very long. It's not that complex. But I want to know if the filters I heard you all tell us have been installed at our school sites actually have been installed, because you can't find them anywhere in this country. So I really want to know, when you tell us you have taken all these safety protocols and you've exercised them, and yes, we've met them, is the answer in an FAQ exactly what that means. And I don't want to call people on the carpet. I don't want to be in this position. I have kids in high school who I've committed I am not going to send back to school because they are not comfortable going back to school. I have no idea what that's going to look like because I haven't heard you guys talk about that. But when the survey came out in the summer, and understandably, nobody knew anything, it was a cocktail of virtual learning through LTCC classes, STHS classes, and I forget the other, the Edgenuity. It was not ILA. It sounds like ILA to me. It sounds like ILA to me from elementary all the way through high school, because time has not been dedicated to figuring this out. And I realize this is complex. But if we're not ready to take next steps, we're simply not ready. I would really like answers to the questions that we've been hearing today. I do not feel comfortable with you making a decision to move forward, as much as I understand people want their kids back in school. I would love to have my kids back in school. My comfort level is next to zero because I function on facts. And I just cannot emphasize enough that we need answers to these questions. Moving forward makes no sense.
15 seconds.
Classroom does not make sense. A stable cohort cannot be defended by what I'm hearing. And I have no idea how the kids who are sick are going to stay home and get educated, and how the teachers are supposed to manage this. I'm sorry to be lobbing this out there. I am all about solving problems, but I don't know how you're ready to
Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Cutler. Next up is Melina Wallish.
Good evening. We and our kids are thankful to all the teachers dedicated to their work in teaching our kids. They can't wait to get back to school and meet you. Also, thank you, Dr. Cutler and the board, for all your comments and attention to this matter and all of your hard work on this very difficult decision. Thank you also to the schools for working on these plans. We have been very lucky and blessed to be able to stay home with our kids through all of this. And with all the extra time and because of my personal participation in our kids' classes, I am seeing and hearing all of the problems from parents, students, and teachers firsthand. There are many issues. Attendance is down. Kids are alone, depressed, isolated from friends and teachers. The reality is that most parents have no choice. They have to work. Being away from home, they cannot make sure that their kids are logging on and paying attention to class every day. I see kids giving up, dropping out. They need teachers in person who can provide guidance, encouragement, motivation, and discipline while their parents are away making a living. A well-rounded education encompasses more than virtual learning. Interaction with teachers and peers is just as important to their education and personal growth, especially at this young age. I've been able to listen in on all my kids' classes and I see what is happening. Who's missing and where are they? Some are playing video games and texting friends. Others are just gone. Not all kids join friend pods, have private tutors, or enrichment circles. They are slipping through the cracks and heading for a free fall. We can help and save them. The time to move forward is now. Concerns have been addressed, safety protocols are in place, and I have faith that we are prepared and I support you. If you're not on board with this, you have the option of staying distant. Our kids' future should not be sacrificed because you're unwilling to adopt this solid hybrid plan of moving safely forward. Thank you.
Mr. President, we've reached the last person. That's Kathy Haven.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. I know this has gone on endlessly. I wanted to read the following list. These are the school districts surrounding us who are all reopening or have already reopened. The vast majority have a hybrid in place like the one originally suggested by LTUSD. The others are going back in full, and online learning is available for all of those in the districts that I found. In Placer County, Placer Hills School District, Colfax Union High School District, Placer Union High School District, Roseville Joint Union High School District, Auburn Unified School District, and Tahoe Truckee Unified School District. In Nevada, obviously Douglas County School District has gone back, Carson City has gone back, and Washoe County, all on hybrids, all back in August. In El Dorado County, the scheduled openings are, hold on, Camino Union is open for in-person instruction. Motherlode Union opens October 19th. Gold Oak Union opened for in-person instruction. Gold Trail Union will open in September. Latrobe School District opened August 17th. Pioneer Union opened August 10th. Placerville Union opened September 5th with a hybrid. Pollock Pines will open on October 5th with an AM/PM hybrid. Buckeye Union opens today with a hybrid. Rescue Union opened in August with a hybrid. Black Oak Unified School District returns October 5th with a modified traditional. And El Dorado Union High School District also is reopening on October 8th for all 4 high schools with an alternating A/B schedule. These are all districts surrounding us. Each one is opening for some form of in-person instruction for their K-12 students in the next couple of weeks if they haven't opened already. Some districts are smaller than ours, some are larger, and some look very similar to ours. I spent about 2 hours online searching websites. I couldn't find any districts in our vicinity who are not going back to some kind of in-person instruction. I implore our districts and our teachers to put students first and not let our fear overcome us. Teach our children that we face dangers with tools, masks, hand sanitizers, soap, etc., rather than hiding. The tools are working. We can keep our children and our teachers safe by being careful, by being vigilant, and by being clean. Our children need school for so many reasons, and the physical risk of sickness cannot stop our children's world from turning, especially since we have tools to fight this. Their welfare, their growth, and their ability to be human depend on them getting off of their screens and back to face with people. Please follow the lead of every district surrounding us who is also looking out for the welfare of their children and start the process of bringing all of our children back in the classroom. All students need that invaluable face-to-face time. Based on the decision we're making tonight, we will be the one lone district within 50 miles in every direction that is being inequitable for our middle and high school students. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
That's
crazy.
Is that it? Is that it?
That was all that was on my list, Mr.
Okay,
President.
thank you, Dr. Cutler. I think what the best thing to do is let's have a discussion. Let's talk. Okay? We have passed a consensus, but at the same token, all of us have read what, 100, 150 emails? Okay? I'm out and about. I know people have called me or people have asked me questions about all of this, and I've tried to have as best transparency as possible, okay? So I think it's important that we don't just adjourn and go home. I think we need to spend a little time and talk. We listened to the correspondence, we listened to the speakers. Many of the speakers were the same speakers, I understand that, but they have legitimate points. And you guys have always heard me say this. I want to honor all concerns and fears. So with that being said, who would like to make a comment or whatever? Okay. Bonnie, you want to lead us?
I would like to encourage that administration work with STEA to lengthen the school contact time per day, so our students have the opportunity to benefit from a more regular length school day. Do we want to have a conversation about that?
Okay. Anybody want to make a comment? Right.
This is a separate comment, is just a reminder that if our numbers continue to be as good as they are now in terms of COVID cases, that will only be in the hybrid model for 6 weeks for the elementary school, that we're looking at shifting to, more time in the classroom. So I hope that that can be the case, and that we can also figure out how to deal with the middle school and the high school, because I recognize it's a lot more complicated, and that's why we're taking some time. And I want to encourage our principals and superintendent to work together with the teachers and really, as Eric Beavers mentioned, democracy, just getting more teachers involved to figure out how to move forward with the high school and the middle school so that we can address safety and physical distancing.
Trustee Bannister?
This is hard. Like, I feel like my heart is coming out of my chest because everyone's view, their concerns, everything is so important. And I can certainly sympathize with all of it. If you look at the science part, they say in October, when it gets cold again, we're going to see a great influx in positive COVID. But then watching our kids struggling, and I don't even just mean with the learning, it's, the family dynamics, our parents are now teachers. Our teachers are going, 10 extra miles to make the distant learning it more engaging, keeping it, holding the attention of these kids. I still don't feel comfortable with the middle school, high school instructional minutes, I should say. The elementary, I'm feeling like I don't like the idea of using that as for lack of a better term, guinea pigs. The whole Mr. Damerall said he started the the prototype for the process, trying to iron things out. The Office of Education today, a lot of the districts have gone back, are about to go back, even in hybrid, other than Black Oak Unified. And it's, you know, the unknowns are heavy. And I'm really, through this whole process, I've honestly been concerned of the teacher training. You know, it's been, personally for me, hearing from teachers and families has been kind of quiet until recently. And then it was like this great, you know, influx of emails that I feel like are kind of a 50-50 split, which it's like, I don't feel like we have a majority of either side of hybrid or staying distant. And, you know, then I think of our, you know, families that are struggling and the kids that are home alone doing schoolwork. I mean, my child fits into that. So I'm very honestly torn. I'm on the fence with this whole thing because I sympathize with both sides. And I just don't feel confident either way, but I do know that we need to keep moving forward. I just still feel like I don't have enough information, like the asynchronous piece. I don't understand how teachers are going to be able to accommodate hybrid and then flipping to distant. Because you're right, this isn't something that's been taught in colleges. It's not like a class like when, you know, you're in student teaching and you're learning that process. This is unheard of up until this year. So, you know, how do we get the training in this tiny little amount of time to help our teachers, especially with, we really don't have a lot of leaders in it. And I just mean that in terms of, this is unknown territory. It's not that we don't have leaders, it's just, you know, everyone's in the beginning stages of this. But I feel like, you know, we've heard from a lot of teachers that are asking for more training. How do we accommodate that? How do we give our teachers a solid foundation, or at least more solid, instead of feeling like they're standing in quicksand? You know, I mean, I'm actually watching a lot of teachers online, and as hard as it is on them, they are doing a phenomenal job. I can't even hold a candle to them. I mean, they are really going the extra mile. So how do we get to this piece where either way that we go down the road, that we're feeling more confident?
So I don't know
Go
if
ahead.
in response, and we've had.
You can make a response.
Yeah,
Then
so
I'm gonna
the
go.
three board members that spoke, and so I'll do my best to just, you know, and I heard the teachers talk about training. I've heard the teachers talk about Canvas training, and just never seems to be enough time. That's just for sure. And I would tell you that training for hybrid is, I believe, a conversation that really just happens between the principal and the staff, going over the draft plans and ironing it out together. Yes, we have less time for our elementary schools to do that based on my recommendation to this evening, but I think that that's how that works. You know, I do appreciate Mr. Beaver's comment about democracy, but democracy in school is an interesting piece. And what I mean by that is we can't necessarily put a vote to a plan. But what I think I took from it, Mr. Beaver's statements, is that level of highly engaging with our staff, right? It's not about necessarily, okay, let's vote and select the plan. It's our leadership, our administration working with teachers. And our administration has to come forth with some structure and some components to that. I think that that's how the professional training goes. Because when you talk about it, and you just talked about it, right, there's not a great deal of experience. And I heard some folks say, hey, we've been having people all around us do these. We've been looking and watching all these models. And we've watched some fail, and we've watched some be successful, limited, and we're learning. Some people think we should do an AM and a PM, but our concern about an AM and a PM is actually the cleaning of the environments between. So I don't think there's anything perfect about this. And I'm going to go back to my opening statements, is that this summer we went through a great deal of planning. And we did. And by the way, we planned this summer for hybrid, but it gets complex, and we've adjusted and adapted as we've watched others, but also thinking about safety being the number one. So I guess when we get concerned about training, it's about having conversations and walking through how is this going to happen? How is that going to happen? And I think one of our speakers asked us several questions. I did my best to write them down, but those are questions that our leadership work and principals work with our staff. I want to say something that was regarding cohort numbers. The state has changed from the monitor list to the colors. And in our county, there are schools that are going back in full. There are schools in the state that are going back full. And it's all about depending now on the color of your county. And so the cohort recommendations are specific right now to purple. We're orange. Actually, by the color, we can go back in full. And the reason why I bring that up is to the comment that Trustee Kemper just made, is that in our plan, we said we'd want to kind of transition, kind of go from that virtual distance, watch our numbers, see if we could go to a hybrid, watch our numbers, and actually move towards that modified traditional for elementary, and eventually, hopefully, phase 4. If we were to stay in orange or even, of course, go to yellow, there's nothing that says we can't do that in those numbers, of course, in our criteria. So I want to share that. And I think just to talk to you about the point about the time, when we were negotiating with our teachers specific to virtual and hybrid, it was about time for teachers. So we had our SB 98 recommendations of amount of time. And that came out because in the spring, there really wasn't any structure to what was required. And so, though I believe that my former district and LTUSD did really just an admirable job across the state and even within our own, we had different components to it. And so the state set up times. And so when we were negotiating, we wanted to make sure, and this is going to the teacher time and teacher training, that we knew that doing virtual would take teachers, time to prep and prepare. And you've heard tonight from teachers, they're working through the weekend. I mean, we got dedicated professionals. And so so just address that. And then hybrid, same component, right? That the time and preparation it takes. So we need to make sure that we're cognizant of that in our planning. But those were specific to virtual and hybrid. So that's just a couple comments.
I would like just to respond to the idea that we can solve this democratically. I'm all for the democratic system, but we designed this plan so that this would not be a political decision when to go back.
Yes,
This is we set this up with a series of thresholds and criteria that were under the advisement of the best medical professional advice that we could come up with. And so the idea was that when we arrived at this moment, it wouldn't be decided by a popular vote. It would be decided upon the guaranteed safety of our students. Where I do believe that democracy, of course, has a role is, I think, as you alluded, in each school site, certainly there are ample opportunities to pull in all ideas and come with an effective working system together. They are the professionals. They can do this. And, but it doesn't have bearing on the decision that we're making today. In fact, based upon our numbers, I'm wondering if we should have a conversation about skipping hybrid. I don't know if we're really ready to go there, and I could go either way. But I'm concerned that I look at Washoe County School District. I have a friend that teaches chemistry in high school, and he's been teaching full-time lab science hybrid since the beginning of the year. Those students are getting science. in high school, a regular schedule. And I worry about our students having those kinds of opportunities too.
Are you done responding?
I think I was trying to hit on what I'd heard from.
Let
because-
me bring Troy in.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Hey, Troy, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. It's your turn to get into the discussion.
Okay. Well, thank you, Bonnie. I appreciate all that framing. That's and Lori and everybody for the framing. I do want to share a few thoughts. One, on this comment about it being 1%. That's a 1% infection rate for the entire country. That would be over 33 million cases, and it's not just about deaths from COVID. It's about long-term lasting health effects. So, if we're looking at people that are having their lives substantially altered by this disease, it doesn't necessarily have to be a death to be, a significant impact on people's lives. The second point is, yes, these school districts have opened. We don't know the results yet of how they've been doing. We need to, they've just opened. We don't know how well they've been doing. So I don't know that we can immediately say that just because they've opened, they're a success story. We don't know that for a fact yet. And so there's a lot of questions to consider. All that being said, my brother recently moved to Tennessee. He took his children out of California, out of a Bay Area school district, and moved to Tennessee because his eldest son, my nephew, is a very gifted athlete and was beginning to decompensate socially. Could see very, very serious health issues beginning to occur, mental health issues beginning to occur with his oldest son. A very, very social child, a very active child, extremely active child, who began to sit at home, stare at the wall, not speak. Serious social decompensation. So there are health concerns to be considered on the other side as well. There are health concerns, universal health concerns, with no matter what decision is made here. We do have the numbers low enough to fully open the schools. And I believe that some sort of phased reopening is preferable. We do have that plan in place. I'm still not sure of the plan, the change plan that we heard tonight. I think the original plan that we have in place is something that we could still adhere to, including possibly skipping to phase 3 and bringing the young ones back into the class. I'm also in favor of a different hybrid model. I actually do think we should be considering an AM/PM hybrid model. I just don't have total confidence in the hybrid model as it currently stands for teachers and staff to be able to adjust to that model quickly, efficiently, and then to be there only for 6 weeks and then have to do away with it. We're creating a lot of uncertainty in the lives of our families and our children and our staff and our teachers. I think it may be wiser to choose, wiser to maybe stay in distance a little bit longer until we have a plan in place, or just proceed with the plan as it currently exists, or move to phase 3. If we believe that the numbers are low enough and we have the kids in class, let's just get the kids back in class rather than introducing all this uncertainty. So I'd like to see another meeting on this. I know we do not have a vote tonight. I think we need to take a vote soon, another special meeting very soon, to determine exactly what path we're going to take. And there's no easy decisions, as I said, and I personally need more time with this. I need more time to reflect and pray and think about ultimately the decision that needs to be made for the safety of our students, again, on both sides, considering health risks on both sides of the spectrum. So I appreciate staff time. I appreciate the recommendations. I'm not prepared to make a decision yet, but I do believe we need to move quickly on this, and I would ask for another special meeting soon where we will actually be taking a vote on the next steps.
Anything else, Troy?
Trustee Turnbull would like to speak.
I just, Yeah, go ahead.
No, no, no,
go.
that's fine. That's fine.
I just wanted to say, Troy, the way I understood this process was we had already approved the plan,
there's no vote.
and the plan is unfolding. Um, What our job is now is to just really to turn this over to the professionals to implement the plan. They've outlined very carefully all the safety requirements. They've outlined how they could set this up. And it's certainly true that everything is not going to be perfect from the beginning, but we will always err on the side of safety. That's everyone's bottom line. So I don't see a need for another meeting because we've already approved the plan.
Can I piggyback
I understand that, but I believe that in calling the special meeting, we may be, it sounds like we're considering rethinking the plan, so I'm just not sure what the process is on that.
Well-
I mean, we approved one plan, but if we're considering drastically altering the plan, I don't know that that's, if we're just going to go to phase 2 on schedule, then no, we don't need another vote because we've already approved that. But if we're considering a change to the plan, I'm not sure what the procedure is for that.
Okay, well, Troy, Bonnie, first of all, I agree with you. Having another meeting on this, I'm not sure that's going to help, okay? Tonight, what we were trying to do is exactly what Bonnie was saying. We agreed on June 30th that we were going to have 4 phases. We also agreed on June 30th that if the science told us certain things, we could maybe skip a phase, or if all of a sudden COVID cases return, we're going to go back to distance learning. I agree that the stakeholders at the high school, that's teachers, administration, and parents, need to have, now Eric called it democracy, I call it a dialogue. And they need to work out some of these issues that are concerning them the most. But I'm going to be honest, if they can't come to a consensus, Dr. Cutler has to solve the issue. That's where it's got to go. I'm with Bonnie on this, that we follow the science, we have a plan. Now, I'm not against having a discussion or whatever. I would suggest, my suggestion to each board member is to meet with Dr. Cutler individually and go over some of the concerns that you have. Troy, I'm talking to you too. Every one of us, meet with him, let him explain why he wants to stay in phase 2. Now, and Dr. Cutler will tell you this, when he and I talked last Wednesday, the day after our board meeting, I went in and I told him, I think we should go to phase 3. We discussed it. It was a very fruitful conversation. And then I talked to Jude Wood and I asked her, okay, tell me the good and the bad of what you've done this summer. And her recommendation was that the hybrid phase 2 is a good plan because you classically condition the kids, like some of the parents are concerned about, masks. Don't touch each other. We're going to go outside. We're going to eat over here. We're going to do a lot of different things, but it's smaller numbers. Okay? What I got out of tonight is that we are instructing Dr. Cutler by a 4-to-1 vote to continue our plan with the adjustments you're talking about at the middle school and the high school, incorporate those stakeholders, all people. I think Eric will be happy with that, okay? I think Eric will be happy with that. But I am also saying if a consensus can't be met at those schools, it becomes the superintendent's responsibility. I'm going to add something. When we chose Dr. Cutler on March 3rd, we thought that we were going to have to put him in a position to make some very difficult decisions, and the board needed to support him. And it had nothing to do with COVID. It was about budgets and other things, but I'm not going to go into those lists. So here we are in a situation where that task force worked extremely hard, came up with a plan. It's not a perfect plan. I said that in my opening. No plans are perfect. Okay? But we need, I want to give it some time. I want the middle school and the high school to work on this and see where it goes. But the ultimate responsibility is on Dr. Cutler. And it's ultimately up to us to support him to get there. That doesn't mean we can't have questions or concerns. That's why I would ask all of you to meet with him and go over this stuff. Okay? And hopefully that'll alleviate some of our fears and concerns. And Randy, I agree with you. This is not fun. Okay? This is not fun. But you know what? Read a book called Profiles of Courage. Sometimes you have to step forward and you have to do the right thing, and some people are going to get angry. I want you to think about this. All the stuff we've read, all the people we've listened to since July 1, we're not going to get a consensus. Okay? They're going to be angry, some of them, and some are going to applaud us. So that would be what I think we should do. We already gave a consensus. We're going to direct him to do these things, and then we're going to report back. Okay.
Yeah, just to add, I think hopefully this helps Troy. I think the meeting, our next meeting that's scheduled October 13th, is when Dr. Cutler will be able to come back with some of these questions answered. I mean, a little more specificity to the middle school. So a lot of the things and the concerns raised tonight, we all got to hear, and that's, I mean, I don't see us having a meeting between now and
No.
October 13th
No.
because the middle school teachers and administrators need to work on a bunch of different ideas that they've all been discussing. So that seems to be the soonest we could have a discussion on some of the questions that have been posed tonight. So I think, yeah, the plan that Dr. Cutler presented makes a whole lot of sense, and we move forward with that, and hopefully we get some of these concerns addressed on October 13th. So we
Dr.
have a little
Cutler,
better idea.
clarification here. Now, you understand what we want you to do. We
So-
want you to do exactly what you propose, but incorporate as many, now, this is easy for me to say, okay? As many stakeholders and I'm talking about teachers, I'm talking about administration, I'm talking about parents, anyone else. And
Mr. President, one thing I would say is if, it sounds as though I'm moving forward with the plan.
Sure.
And tonight, to address Trustee Matthews' statement, it wasn't exactly written, and it actually, in meeting with a couple of trustees, they said, well, I think you have the flexibility to make those adjustments. And I felt like I needed to make sure that we vetted that out together as a team, because it was a little variation to that plan. The other thing I just want to make a comment is that just because in the recommendation I gave this evening that we move quicker with the elementary does not mean that the elementary principals won't engage their staff over the next 2 weeks in that process. And that goes back to something Trustee Bannister asked. One of the things that Mr. Demerol was talking about was the implementation of a synchronous instruction while we're having students in the classroom. And that there's learning curves for folks. And that goes back to the training piece. Sometimes training is kind of on the job training. And I hate to say that because I know I may have some folks listening. They're like, yeah, but we had to push our way through some of the Canvas, even with the critical feedback of not having enough training. There are trainings available through Canvas that folks could take, and if our teachers didn't hear those offers, they should have. But we had a limited time. But I'm so proud, and you'd mentioned it. Our teachers pushed through, in spite of a lot of challenge and odds. And I think that if teachers, they want to be with their kids. Now I know that there are some that are fearful of that. And we have to respect and work with them as best we can. But we did pass a plan. And so I was simply wanting to make sure that we were on the same page together. But I wanted to because I didn't answer that question. And so it's not about doing a trial and error. That's a unique piece of doing And I know the high school is talking about that. I know they have talked about it specifically. So I just want to say.
Well, there's a couple things that I would like clarity on. I'm not science minded, and I'll be the first to admit it. But if we look at the science part, okay, the numbers are going down, yet they keep predicting this influx through the winter. And then like today, I was at Barton and it's like major lockdown city there. Like you're waiting outside in the parking lot, you're masked while you wait, your temperature check. I mean, that's Barton. So how does all that science piece work when we're like merging 17 people in a room? Do you see what I'm saying? Like I am struggling a little bit with that because maybe it's because I'm not science minded, but that seems kind of.
Well, I mean, I think everybody's taking their safety protocols, and the health industry has extreme safety protocols because COVID is coming to them. You know, when you're sick, right? I think that, I mean, if we think about the safety protocols our health industry takes before we took COVID, there's that line of defense that folks do and take. I mean, we work every Tuesday morning, we have a call with our health partners and talk about all of these pieces. Interesting enough, our health partners back in the summer were really pushing to have us back in school fully. And so, you know, and that was them at that time. And they pulled back a little bit and realized that, hey, you know, there's a process that we needed to go through, and we need to make sure that we have safety and security, work with our staff and do those pieces. Yeah. And so, you know, I mean, the protocols for a health organization was what it is. And they do that. I mean, you know, the masks have been worn for, you know, ever inside of health areas, hospitals and such. So I don't know if again, I mean, my best thing I would say is that we work with them closely. They give us guidelines, they give us guidance. Dr. Williams, our public health officer, gives us guidance. Our public health officer is part of that process of us determining we're in orange. That guidance right now is that students can be back in school. I mean, so I just don't know what to necessarily say beyond that.
And we don't have all the answers. Okay.
I mean, we've set up protocols, and actually I think that that's where we're the best prepared.
Right.
I mean, we have set up and we've practiced those protocols as Dr. Cohen talked about it when we've had our most needy students that need intervention that have been in school, so we can practice those practices.
Are we done?
No, keep going.
I'm interested, have we been able to do some kind of census of our teachers to establish who it is that is at higher risk and perhaps would benefit from some additional precautions?
You know what? So in one of that process, so it's an HR process, a personnel process, where if there's a health concern, health item, they submit a concern about their health to personnel, and they can look at what accommodations we can provide to protect or support them. And there's been we've had I don't know the exact number, but at least a handful of staff that have gone through that process. It's an interactive process regarding their health and their needs that happens with our HR department. Of course, this summer we wanted to provide our teachers options as we went through the process so that they could consider what their choices would be as we got to these points.
Right. And I'm really interested that maybe we could offer music.
I heard that presentation this evening. I think it's very important. And again, it's about us looking at the guidance. And that's one of the interesting pieces. The guidance has changed over time, and the guidance is different with the different colors. And that's why I was talking about the guidance for the cohort numbers is now specific to the purple. And that's been a shift. And that's been a shift since we negotiated. It was the monitor list back in the summer, and now it's this different color scheme. Yeah.
I like the idea of music though.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So that's again, we don't have the colors in our plan because we approved the plan before that. But the colors provide that additional direction. Because if you're in orange and yellow, then you're really, by the guidance of the colors, you're good to open school.
Okay, anything else?
Yes. So for families that are not comfortable with going back to school, their options are ILA, or if it's K through 8 is elevated. I'm a fan of ILA. My son went through it, but there's no way that that fits for every student.
Yeah.
It's a tough education path, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering a couple things. What are comfortable options for families that aren't okay with going back in the classroom? And what are the chances, or what does it look like for elevated instead of it being K through 8, it going all the way to the 12th grade? I mean, I know you touched on it at one point. I just can't remember what that conversation was. And I am also curious of the cohorts and the numbers. I mean, because there's the 1 to 17, and then Miss Dayberry mentioned her numbers, the 16 total. So I'm just, I do want to have a little better understanding of who's selecting the cohorts and how that's really going to look like. Is the number still being crunched and altered? Because honestly, I can't in my mind picture 17 people in a classroom and still having 6 feet apart from each other.
Yeah, so one of the requirements, and even in the MOU, is that we actually can measure and show that we can fit that number. If not, then we have to make some adjustments. And really, it's really about the spaces. And in regards to the 16 or the 17, we in essence, the 16 that Ms. Dayberry referred to is guidance, again, that's under the purple color scheme. We with the negotiations talked about a 12 in certain grade levels and up to 17 in others. And so those are us looking at the spacing. We agreed in a hybrid model that we would keep 6 feet distancing. By the way, I guess I want to again share this. With the change in color, it actually, by the guidance and recommendation of that, it shifts, but we will abide by our MOU and work from those numbers. Though it's about 6 feet distancing in certain spaces. And so like we have to adjust a little bit and work with the fact is that we have some larger classes like in a PE space that we have to make certain that we can just keep our 6 foot distancing and work from there. To answer the questions in regards to choices, we really, back when we passed our plan in July 30th, we wanted to promote that there was choice. And that's one of the reasons why we created Elevated. Also, that we felt like Elevated would be a long-term program that could be a choice that fits for parents in the future, not just during COVID, but for well into the future. Obviously, ILA has been in place for years to come. We realized that would grow, and it has grown. So those are 2 options for families. And, there are classes that are filled up at Elevated, but we will work with families. One of the things that we're working with, and this actually helps us with our numbers in the high school, is that when we go to A, B cohorts, will there be also like a C? Now, let me use a D cohort that is just virtual, so that we can work on those numbers. And that, again, is part of why I thought, we need a little more time working on that hybrid model. And especially, and we heard this last week with the feedback from during last week, is that people are really actually pleased with the virtual work of the high school. And so pushing that out a little bit longer seemed to make sense, especially with the fact is that we probably will have an A cohort, a B cohort. We talk about a C day being more of an intervention type piece. So maybe a D cohort that is just virtual. I've had some requests in some of the emails that we've received over this past week about staying virtual even at the lower levels. But the problem is that we also have staffing we have to work with, right? And so we have to keep the certain numbers of pieces together. So we're going to navigate that. We're going to do our, that's one of the things is and I think that tonight really shows, even coming with a variation to the plan a little bit and a recommendation, is that I've been listening to folks, thinking about how do we move forward. So I would hope that folks feel heard, even though I understood the frustration that some just don't. And that's just part of, unfortunately, because I want people to know that we are listening. It's just a very difficult, challenging piece. So they have options. We'll work with them. And we'll go from there. If people are adamant that they don't want to go back, we're going to see what we can do to find them the right spot.
Okay, anything else? Troy, do you have anything
Yeah,
you want to add?
I just want to reiterate support for as much choice as we can possibly give to families and to staff and teachers moving forward. And then just to reiterate that, in no way am I expressing a lack of confidence in Dr. Cutler or the team. I'm simply saying that I do have some concerns moving forward. And to your point, Larry, I'll take those to Dr. Cutler. But I just want to reiterate that I'm not suggesting that a lack of confidence in the decisions of the superintendent. I'm just saying that I do have some personal concerns about this plan. And of course, I do want to reiterate that safety is obviously of the utmost concern for everybody. I'm hearing a lot of people say, please consider safety. I just want to reiterate that I don't think we're considering anything else. So thank you.
Okay, I think we're done. Okay.
Is there plexiglass or some kind of clear wall for just another safety measure, like with the elementary age?
So depending on the proximity of the teacher or the person serving the student, we will then do shields and plexiglass as necessary. We do have some plexiglass in certain environments, specifically in some of our special services environments where students are in one-on-one or in a testing environment, that there's plexiglass. So we do have some of that.
And so we'll have the filters and the hand sanitizer available, and then masks if
So we have hand sanitizer in all environments. We have masks for anybody that does not wear their own or that wears one improperly. To address the filters, and there was I think it was Ruth Rich that brought that up. We have brand new filters in all of our system. They are a high quality MERV 10. We are replacing them with MERV 13. We have ordered. There is a challenge to get them, so we are pushing hard. This is not necessarily part of a phased-in approach, but realizing that that we need to that because of the lack of the filters in the United States, that we need to just make sure we get the elementary taken care of.
I just still think about schools in New York, how they're suggesting having windows open to get good airflow. And then here we're approaching winter. And there were, in the last board meeting, a teacher was talking of how her classroom's cold, and how are we prepared to accommodate that if we need to have fresh air rolling through? Or
so if you recall, we did have a presentation from Mark and Rand that talked about our air filter systems, our circulation systems that all been serviced and are working appropriately. Now we have different types of systems that are functioning. He also talked that day about the actual shift of cool versus hot, and the reality that as we have certain doors open or different pieces, that heat in the air, but also if I remember right from that presentation, feel as though that our ventilation system, especially with our filter system, is meets the needs of our schools. Now, when we talk about cold, sometimes I'm going to say this. We have a lot of old windows in our schools that aren't double or triple pane. So sometimes keeping hallways and or classrooms the right temperature is just a challenge in our environment.
Okay, anything else? Okay, I'm going to now move to item 5. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everybody that joined us. Thank you for your
Thank
input.
you. Everyone, thank you.